This picture represents this is 40 years. This is and they've had continuous saving.
Let's pray. Most gracious Heavenly Father, God, we ask that you bless this meeting. Bless each one that's here and give us the mind and heart to do what would be your will. We give you the praise in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll say the last.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor? Let's do a roll call.
Yes.
Okay, I want to leave you now.
Yes.
Yes.
Where'd that
Still
come from?
playing. Is there something playing back there?
Okay, good to go.
I think so, Mayor.
Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
I have a couple, if you would, in closed session, we need to add, a section for personnel. I forgot to add that in for, and specifically for the town manager. Also, would like to add a couple of things too, also in miscellaneous, procurement for bridge inspection required by VDOT needs to be added. Telecom update and grant writer position, to discuss that. And possible memorandum of understanding for flood study potential. So I'm sorry I didn't get that in the regular, just let it in.
Any others? Any other additions or deletions? I entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make the motion to approve the agenda as amended.
No second.
I will second the motion.
Motion and seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call vote.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Curry,
Yes.
Mr. Hurst,
Yes.
Mr. Ratliff,
Yes.
Mr. Strong, Mrs. Strong, Mr. Wood.
Yes.
I apologize.
Motion carries. You have the minutes before you. They're in your packet. Any additions or deletions to the minutes?
We doing all sets, Paul? Are we doing all sets this?
Yes, yes. Any changes to any of it? Hearing no concerns, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Have a second.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Roll call vote.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Curry,
Yes.
Mr. Hurst,
Yes.
Mr. Ratliff,
Yes.
Mrs. Strong,
Yes.
Mr. Wood.
Yes.
Motion carries. We have well, let me go down to unscheduled public comments. I know, Ginger, you've got a bit. Any others?
Yeah.
Joe? Any others? Okay. Francis Dupree, would you come to the podium, please? Thank you.
And, we're trying to get, Appalachian Agency is, donating another trailer and a mobile home. We're following another zoning order for her to have it pulled in. There was one there existing and it's been pulled out and cleaned up. Just hoping to get that done. Get it pulled in.
Okay, and this is on, Ellen Street, right?
Yes.
Yeah, right. Any questions, comments, discussion about this?
I've got a letter here from Ms. Dupree. She's asking the Daniel or son speak on her behalf regarding cause of grievance. We discussed this a couple of months ago. He's done what he was required to do quicker than he was required to do it, actually, as far as the timeline we gave him to tear down the other mobile home. So this is something we've already discussed. I think it was moving through the motion for the conditional use permit for the new mobile home.
It actually allows another mobile home to be placed on, correct?
Yeah,
Make sure
yeah, on the top.
It's another second.
Right, yes.
I can speak to the zoning requirements. We have looked at the lot, and there's enough room in the ordinance to accommodate the square footage, and you can see the map, there's enough accommodations between side yards, backyards, and rear yards, and so forth to meet that. So,
Yes.
and I got a call from Appalachian Agency for, that was going to be here, but, they couldn't make it because of illness. I think you may be aware of that. But anyway, they wanted just to make sure that, they knew this was a mobile home donated for this particular purpose, from this particular meeting.
I'll make a motion to grant the conditional use permit to Mr. Creed.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Curry,
Yes.
Mr. Hurst,
Yes.
Mr. Ratliff,
Yes.
Mrs. Strong,
Yes.
Mr. Wood.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thanks, sir. Thank you, guys.
Innovative Worship Center, youth directors.
Basically what we're asking is to allow access to Norfolk Street. It's right beside our church. We're wanting to shut it down, probably from around 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. We're gonna be doing a Hallelujah night. It's gonna consist of games, just basically an outreach for the community through our church. Let kids come trick or treat there, and we'll follow, all the guidelines we have to follow. Everybody will be, what they need to be, and that's what we're asking. So the 30th.
What date is that, sir?
October 30th.
Have you talked to jury and, or anything, the police chief about it?
I did.
You did, Tony?
Yeah, he said it wasn't no problem.
I'll make the motion to do that.
I'll second. We have a motion and a second, to, go down Norfolk Street on October 30th from 6:30 till 9:30.
Can we do it from 5, because we've got to set up, there's 12 games that we're gonna have to set up, so we made it probably from 5 to 10.
5 to 10, okay, I was reading from you right here. From 5 to 10. Any further discussion?
I respect what you're doing very much. My biggest concern is that we have had other organizations ask us to close down the whole street, including private businesses. And pretty much we've always said no. When it comes to the town of Richlands sponsoring the event, we have, because it's a town event, I think it's good. I'm just dubious, not of your mission, for closing a street for any private concern. Thank you.
Okay. Further discussion? Roll call vote.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Curry,
No.
Mr. Hurst,
Yes.
Mr. Ratliff,
Yes.
Mr. Strong, Mrs. Strong, Mr. Wood.
Yes.
Motion carries. Okay. Don't forget the podium cleared there, Ginger.
Thank you, Mayor Crawford. I'm Ginger Branton. Do I have to get my address and everything? Okay. As most of y'all know, CART is celebrating their 40th anniversary with this year's season. Out of that 40 years, the town of Richlands has continued the funding for CART for 31 of those. And today I'm here to present a plaque to the town council, and I'd like the mayor to accept it on the town council's behalf for that. So, can you do that?
I can do
All right, while Paul's coming up, I would also like to thank the town council for giving not only CART, but the county chamber, the Lions Club, the Women's Club, the opportunity to be able to have the candidates forum on Thursday. It was very well received, and I respect all of the people that showed up for that. I appreciate it very much. And I hope that this will be the one of many that we will continue to do. So thank you. Oh, I guess y'all do like this one. Thank you. Oh, and let me get Frank so I can put on my Facebook page. Thank you again. Can you shake hands?
Part of it. He's thinking about me or something.
Ginger, I remember 40 years ago in elementary school,
Oh,
looking at the logo that's on your mask.
oh, yes.
And Ms. Elms,
Connie's sister made this for me.
yes, well, Ms. Elms, Ellen Elms, we did a silk screen t-shirt. That's the first time I'd ever seen a screen t-shirt. Well, that was our project when we were in elementary school when Carter first started. And I remember seeing the community in the zebra. That's what
Yes.
I've always.
Thank you, Jeff, for
Yes.
bringing that. Fond memories.
Yes.
Okay, Joe?
Council members, Joe McCracken. I live here in town, been here 50 years. Lived in this town for 50 years. As of yet, nothing has been done. In the area where I live, there's several people that is, involved in this, 40 to 50 people, 5 businesses, over where I live. I would appreciate if the town council could, get something going over there, because, me, myself, I'm almost 70 years old. I can't do this again. And I'm sure there's others that, feel the same way. We need to get something started. And I suggest we do it in phases. Phase 1 would be raising the road, on the street headed that way. That would cut off one end of the water flow instead of having two. The water flow backing up through the drain and coming across the road. If you raise the road, you could stop one end of the water flow. That would buy a little bit more time. And phase 2, in my opinion, would be the best thing, is to cut a drain around Travis Hackworth's property, which he has agreed to, going straight to the river to handle the excess water backing up through the drain. Phase 3 would be replacing some smaller pipe running into a bigger pipe. And the drain that would be cut would take care of the overflow backing up through the pipe going through Mr. Hackworth's surrounding bottom over there, going back to the river. And I would just like to ask the town council to, if we could get started on this plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Can I make a motion?
Yeah.
That's 3 phases that, Mr. McCracken suggested. We estimate it'll cost around $25,000, $10,000 for the road, the pipe, and digging the ditch. That's just an estimate. So I make a motion that the town, direct Mr. Taylor to do those 3 phases with the cost around $25,000 for the town, because there's what, 70 people over there?
Yes.
And this has been going on for years. So I make that motion.
Thank you. The thing about it is too, it will help the whole community, which will help the town. That's why you all are here, is to help the citizens of the town. And we've been battling this, and it would be greatly appreciated if y'all could get started on something over there.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Motion and a second. Further discussion?
Yes, I wanted to ask, after last council meeting the next morning, Rick and Doug, y'all are gonna meet over there at the property with the Tazewell County engineer.
That's exactly what they,
Is that where the recommendation came from?
and Travis met with us and he said, we clean out the ditch that's already there between the railroad and his property. And that would open up the pipe and let water pass on through.
And might I also add, Tazewell County was there. Tazewell County also offered that if we had a plan, that they could help contribute to that project.
Okay, so do we have an engineering drawing of what we're going to do? Approved by an engineer?
I had an engineer over there, the county engineer.
Did he do?
All they're talking about is raising the road and cleaning the ditch up.
You're talking about putting a line into the river too, right?
No, it has
It's already
nothing to do
there.
with the river.
The ditch is already there, it's just filled up, which is backing up the pipe over here, and won't let the water flow back.
Okay, are we,
All they're doing is enlarging the pipe also from 16 to 20 inches.
No pipe, the railroad's gonna take care of the pipe. At a
That's
later
not
time.
Joe mentioned the pipe. But that's not what the town's doing.
No pipe, the railroad is gonna take care of the pipe.
That would be my third step, but I didn't know the railroad was gonna take care of the pipe, so there's really just two steps. Raise the road where it drops down below grade, which is coming across the road. And we're getting it from both ends, backing up through the drain and across the road. If we can stop one of those, we'll be much better off. Due to the flooding over there,
Would raising the road through the water anywhere else?
it should send it right back down the ditch. The road comes around and goes down. That's where it needs to be raised. On the other end of the road, on that farther, the road picks up and goes back uphill.
Tim, do we have to have a, what do we have to do?
Let me speak to that as part of my report, y'all, leave it at that. After last meeting, of course, I didn't meet with the group on there, but I actually took notice to what exactly needed to be done. But the flood ordinance is pretty rigid about any type of work that's done in the floodway areas, which this is one of them. That any type of work has to be approved and has to be performed by a licensed professional engineer, and has to be approved by the governing body with plans and specs and so forth. I went ahead and with our retainer agreement with Thompson, I got the engineers to come out and do a scope of work to look at that area and explain to them exactly what area we were looking at. And they devised, as well as the drainage area up at the schoolhouse. It's on the school complex on Route 460. And they would be their licensed professional engineers that deal with floodway issues. That's what their expertise is. So we've got a gentleman coming out of Christiansburg, LS, and developed a scope of work to do exactly this, to look at what you're building. The scope of work would be to conduct site visits to evaluate the stormwater infrastructure and obtain a better understanding of the specific stormwater issues, which would be also to interview, I'm sure you, Joe, the affected landowners. Review and gather available topography mapping, soil mapping, FEMA flood maps, and stream stat reports and previous evaluations to assist in the determination of peak discharges involving stormwater. And with delineation of the stormwater areas for each particular problem that might be performed in that. Perform rough stormwater calculations to determine peak discharge and peak volumes for a 2, 10, and 24 event storm. And then identify the potential storm drainage improvements and prepare rough order magnitude estimates for potential stormwater improvements. Prepare a letter describing the potential drainage improvements to mitigate the existing stormwater issues. And then they would have an extra meeting to present these findings to the council and staff or whomever. That would include not only that particular part of it, but would also include looking at what we already given them on the potentials for the stormwater improvements that could be made up to school. All of that particular work would be for a lump sum fee of $18,220. So if you want to get a product, from an engineering firm that does this, evaluates these flood events, then that's what our particular engineering firm we have on the town can do.
Did I say something, Tim?
You say there can't be anything filled or raised or anything. It's happening every day over there. Filling is going on in the bottom over there every day, has been for years. Do they have the proper permitting to fill that without notifying anybody else?
The property, I guess you're talking about the Herman property, is what you're talking
Yes.
about. There is a limited amount of filling in the floodway fringe. The floodway fringe, not the
Well, that's
floodway.
what this is, a limited amount.
Well, there is some provisions in the ordinance that allows for that. I don't know if they've broken the ordinance or not. I have no clue on that, but there is some filling. So you don't have to have a professional engineer to cut levelize lots and to do things like that. But if you're going in and you're gonna raise roads and you're gonna develop, areas that will put water in different directions, it's going to affect a lot of different, could affect a lot of, it may not, may help.
Well,
But you've got to have
this
somebody
is
take the load.
affecting a lot. What this person's doing is affecting a lot too.
Joe, it's not a point of argument, so.
I just took what the code says, that's all.
I mean, there was a whole development built over there, and there was no word said. And just building up a road and digging a ditch, if we wait on Thompson Litton, we're gonna be months and years again. So this is a quick fix to help 70 people over there. And why can't we do it now? That's not gonna affect anyone to raise a road. We do that every day. We dig a ditch every day. There was a whole development, as I said, built over there. McClure's always doing something. I mean, we had engineers over there and met with us from the county. The whole crowd met over there, and that was their suggestion. Okay, we paid $18,000 to Thompson Litton, and we still haven't done anything. Why not spend $25,000 and get it done and over with? We have a motion on the floor, so let's vote on it.
I'll run the meeting.
I wasn't trying to run the meeting, but, okay.
I'll talk about.
But I say,
Any other discussion?
I have something else just to make sure so council knows there is, that the code says a licensed engineer set drawings. So if the county can provide us with those, then they will go look at it.
That's what I
Sure,
was.
that's right.
If the county would be willing to provide the engineering services, and you would amend your motion to save about $25,000, I'll vote for that.
How many times do we build up a road? I mean, it's a big deal to put, what would it take, 6 inches on that road? It's gonna cost $10,000. How many inches would it
I
take?
don't know, I didn't shoot.
Well, the problem arises from the property owner across the road building his property up higher than the road, which causes the water backup flooding across the road. It never used to do that until he built his property up above the road. Now that his property is higher than the road, it travels the shortest path, which is across the road.
So if you built the road up, where would water go in?
It go down the ditch, and come back up the drain and go around the
Wouldn't throw any water.
Hackworth property back to the river.
I have a question. Richard, if you were asking that to amend the motion, to amend his motion, would you like to state again what you would like to do? Your
That we dedicate up to $25,000 for that project itself, instead of combining it with the stormwater, the issue there on 460. If the engineering service that Mr. Franklin said, the county would pick it, it may not cost them anything if the engineer is willing to do it for free, which it sounds like he's already come over to do it. If we get a licensed engineer on board to make a plan, I don't have a problem.
I can't see a reason to do that. They've already
But they need a
suggested.
set of plans, but we're gonna have to have a set of plans.
That's the town's law, right? That's what he just said. We have to.
That's all I'm asking.
We'd have to see some
Well,
plans.
they said if we come up with a plan, that they would be on board with it. So we have derived of that plan, And, so did Mr. Taylor say that, when the council gave approval that we could do something, so.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. My understanding of what Richard's asking, Judge to amend is so that we have a set of plans in front of us to follow that are drawn by an engineer. I understand what you're saying, and I get it, but we need it on paper. I think that's what, is that what you were saying?
Yeah, I just want, it takes the liability off of us is all.
Okay, could we narrow it down, to those three phases, let Thompson and Litton, and give them a time period? We don't want to take 2 or 3 months on them. Give it 2 weeks, give them 2 weeks to come up with a set of plans to do those 3 phases. Would you be satisfied with that?
Will the county not do it for us as a service to us?
Probably, but I'm not sure. I would like a answer tonight so these 70 people don't have to wait like they have waited for years. Mr. Taylor's already said 18,000. Well, if they'll look at those 3 phases in a short time period of 2 weeks, I think that's a great compromise.
His MOU said 45 days is what they got on the.
Mr. Taylor, was that both projects, the 18,000?
Yeah, that's both. I could get them to go back and separate those, before now. They didn't do that. I probably should have gotten them to do it that way.
Or could you have a time period? I'm worried if it rains or if there's a flood. I don't want it on my hands if Mr. McCracken and his neighbors have another catastrophe of a flood. So if we had that's what happens to the town. We kick the can down the road for many months. Why can't we have a time period? If they could get over there, have a plan in 2 weeks for those 3 phases, give the okay, and let's move on.
I can, so you'll have a recess meeting tonight, and we'll take it up next week. I can get this broken out, this MOU broken out at that time, and Mr. Chipman will be here, so he can respond to that.
But that's losing a week. I mean, can't they move in 2 weeks?
It's up to council. I mean, but I don't have that figure for what that would cost.
Well, I mean, I'm sure it's going to cost a lot less than 18,000.
So we're having a recess meeting next week.
Could I make a motion that that we amend it and put within a 2-week period, we have a plan. Let's put some pressure on some people and get this done. Is that too much to ask for those 70 people in town? I mean, Mr. McCracken's, how long have you put up with this? Years?
It's been over 20 years we've kicked this same can. Over 20 years. And I just think it's time for council to take a step forward and do something. It's not like it's the first time Mr. Taylor's heard this problem over there. Like I said, it's the can's been kicked for 20 years, and I would just like to have something.
I think you were a kicker several of those years ago.
Sir?
When you were on the council, you were one of the kickers.
No, sir. I would not bring this up because I was on the council.
Okay.
Which would
All right.
look like a
Can we,
common mattress that I do not do.
If we amend it
For a 2-week
for
period.
2 weeks, then what happens at the end of 2 weeks?
They have a plan for those 3 phases, and let's move on. And if you'll give me Mr. Chitwood's number, I'll call him personally and get him on.
I don't have it.
I can give you his number. It's normally what I do. It's okay. Councilman wants to do
You give me his number, and I'll change my motion, and we'll have it in 2 weeks, a plan from an engineer, hopefully. Mr.
Okay,
Chitwood.
let's, why don't we've got a motion on the floor right now. Why don't we vote on that, vote that motion down, and we'll start over, okay?
You don't want me to amend it?
Just withdraw, please. You just withdraw.
You just need to withdraw that motion and make another.
Okay, I'll withdraw that motion and make this motion that we direct Mr. Taylor to talk to Thompson and Litton. If they would have a plan within 2 weeks of those 3 phases, the impact to protect the town, and to have a plan to do those 3 phases and put it in motion and have it done in 30 days. That's my motion.
I don't know if we can get done in 30 days because the asphalt plant's been closed.
How soon, how long are they?
Not much longer.
Okay, so how much?
Yeah.
2 weeks?
Probably the 30-degree night we got coming up.
Yeah, I'm not gonna do it yet.
That's just what,
So, I mean, but if we get the ditch open, that's gonna eliminate water. You agree, Joe?
If we can take care of one problem or the other, either coming across the road first or second, it does not matter, or the ditch first or second to catch the runover, it really doesn't matter to me.
Oh, I have, a suggestion. I mean, at the most, we're gonna raise that road since the plant's gonna close in what, a week or two? Why can't we raise that road? That's not gonna be the end of the world. We've raised roads many times with asphalt. Raising the road is not gonna have that big an impact. Why don't we do that, and then we can do the ditch and stuff? We'll have time for that. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous to me that we're worried about adding 6 inches to a road that the whole end of the world's gonna come if we do that.
What I'm saying, if we just do the ditch, if we can get it to where we do the ditch, we can relieve enough water off that one so they won't flood. Because that'll open it up to let it come on.
Yeah, but if we don't do the road and they close it, we've lost the whole year.
Yeah, but,
I mean, do you think it's gonna have that big an impact to raise the road 6 inches? I mean,
I have a question. Kim, you've been over there, I've been over there, not recently, but Joe talking about the road. You've been over there to look at what he's talking about, raising the road.
Yeah, I understand the road issue. I do.
What do you think about it as an engineer yourself?
The problem, again, with doing anything, if you go back and the impact of that, it requires you to have studies done. Because the impacts could jeopardize the flood insurance of everyone in the town of Richlands. Because you have to abide by the flood ordinances. You have to abide by the floodplain ordinances. And if the counties agree to do that, why wouldn't they just put it on paper and sign it, and then we can move on that quick? We wouldn't have to do it. If that's what y'all said they've done. Now, if they didn't, then we should probably back up and try to get some professional advice, because hasty doing something might cause some problems with additional lawsuits. And I know that any type of development must require a plan of action in the floodplain districts. That's what the code says. And those plans have to be by a person that's qualified, the ability to do that, and be a professional engineer and seal for that. I could read the code to you, but I know that's what it says.
what changes took place over there in the last few years, Mr. McCracken? What changed everything over there?
The filling in of the company, which is the concrete company, the filling in of his property has raised his property above the street, the road. His property is now up here, the street is down here. So when the water comes, it's coming to the lowest part, which is the street. Does he have permission to do that, to direct the flood waters on somebody else? I don't know. Is he abiding by this code that you're talking about, Mr. Taylor? I don't know. Can I fill in and flood the neighbors? I could. Will I get sued? Probably. But he shouldn't be able to flood a town street either and cost the town monies, problems. That's my opinion.
A lot of that stormwater in that street area there comes from the drains up from off the post office down with that same discharge there that goes down that road. Some of that does that. It would actually make the egress to all that area better for everybody. If we do that, as long as it didn't show an impact to hurt somebody else. So that's what but you're saying the county engineer said that would make sense to them, and they might.
County engineer
Why don't they
said-
just say it?
County engineer says that sounds like y'all have a plan, implement the plan, and we will help. That's
We don't just
why.
put it in writing, so we're clear. We're ready to roll.
Would they be willing to come to the recess meeting next week? Is that appropriate? For them to come and just tell us, as the engineers go, we hear from them as well. I'm just saying, I believe you thought that, I understand we hear from this here.
I'm not on that committee. I'm not privileged to being on that committee. I know what we need to do something over there.
Why don't this?
I'm sure the concrete plant, they didn't mean to do anything.
I'm sure they did, and that's his property.
Exactly. Okay, this is a simple fix, but it all gets political and everybody has to put their 2 cents worth in and stall and make smoke and mirrors and make excuses why we can't do anything. This is so simple, is to put asphalt on a road, and we do it every day, and dig a ditch, and some engineers have looked at it and said, okay. But yet, Mr. Taylor comes up with Thompson Litton to stall for months, or an engineer. I mean, there's no use in this. For one time, let the town do what's right and protect its citizens and do the simple thing without costing an arm and a leg. And we've been at this 4 or 5 years. And all we're asking is for a ditch and to raise the road. Nobody cared anything before anybody said anything about filling in, or we were going to try to help someone. But now everybody's got to put something in and stall, and we end up doing nothing as usual. I have a motion on the floor, and if you'll run the meeting, let's vote on it.
Well, you retracted one motion, unless.
I made another one. I made a
Now
motion.
hear it again.
I make the motion that Mr. Taylor, since he's already talked to Thompson Litton to come up with, okay, or look at the plan of 3 phases, have an answer in 2 weeks, because this is very important if we don't have another flood or rain, that we get this done, and when they give their blessing, that we can, heaven forbid, raise our road 6 inches and dig a ditch, that we have their okay, and we protect those 70 citizens over in Orange Street. That's my motion.
Okay, there's several points to it, but if anybody wants to second it.
I'll second it.
Have a motion and a second. Anybody else want to discuss it a little bit?
Any discussion, I just like the clerk to read the motion.
Which one? I got lost about 3 motions ago.
I was speaking real loud.
I just need a clear understanding of what I voted.
But from what I understand, and if I've listened to everything, and I'm new here, so I'm just trying to take this in. From what I understand, we have to protect ourselves as a town as well. Is that right? I mean, Mr. Taylor.
Actually, the ordinance is in place to protect everyone that lives in the floodplains. That's what it's for. And all I'm trying to say is not to get in the way of trying to be an obstacle to keep progress from going on. I'd certainly like to see this go away as much as you would. A more comprehensive approach would be to get somebody that does that does hydraulic analysis, that knows the programs that they use, that make sure FEMA is involved, and that we don't compromise the flood insurance for the people that have it in the area. That's all. That's all I'm saying.
That would be my biggest concern, is that we jeopardize somebody else. Not doing it intentionally, but that we jeopardize ourselves as council, as a town.
Jeff, when the engineers were over there, all the water was going down the ditch the way it should with this plan. And, as I said before, the concrete plant has every right to do what they want to with the property, and that's fine. But no one was over there screaming when they were doing this and dumping and raising. And they're not getting sued, but they went ahead and did it, and more power to them. But it caused a problem, and now we just want to fix the problem with a simple fix. And if the water was going on other people, I understand, but it's going to go on down the ditch where the engineers vouched it would.
Well, if we want to keep the community and that little development thriving for the next, 30, 40, 50 years, I think we would need to do something. Do it right the first time. If we're going to do it, let's don't put a Band-Aid on an open wound. I mean, I don't know. I'm just sort of new this, but I would want to make sure it's fixed and done properly than just put a patchwork.
That's all well and good, but if it's gonna take 20 more years, Jeff, I think I'll be gone by then. I'm 50 years old now.
I know, but that's the problem where,
Jeff,
that's where I'm at, because
Jeff, with that motion, we have Thompson Litton We give them, ask them in 2 weeks to have a plan. Right? Okay, I'm sorry, Mary, go
Okay, I
ahead.
have a question for Rick, because I respect your knowledge of roads and streets. Did I understand you to say that for now, it would be a huge benefit if we cleaned out the ditch? And
Yes,
then we could wait on raising the road because we probably couldn't get the asphalt.
That's what I'm
this time
saying.
of year anyway.
that's what I'm saying.
The ditch being Travis Hackworth's property. That's the ditch, and that's running from the drain to the river.
What happens, Marianne?
I mean, I just.
The water
trying to figure
comes
our
out.
Plan, yeah.
This is the part, the water comes out, then it has to go uphill to go down, and that causes it to back up on the other side of the railroad. And that's what floods Joey. If this was cleaned out where it should be, when the pipe was put in, the water would flow on to the river. We're not doing nothing different, all we're doing is cleaning out the ditch.
We want to cut a ditch around that pipe to catch the overflow.
And do we eventually need to add 6 inches to the asphalt?
Eventually, yes, but we won't be able to this time of year. I mean, if we got approval tomorrow, the team agrees with you, if you can't get the asphalt, you can't raise the road.
That's why I was trying to clarify what our plan is as soon as possible, and then are we gonna raise the road 6 inches?
I guess this would be part of the big plan if you put it together, right? I mean, if you put it together in a couple of weeks to look at this plan.
Do you, again, defer to your knowledge, I don't have any streets and roads. Do you believe we do need to add the 6 inches?
I think we do, yes. And Tim actually said that early in the game. It was actually his idea to raise the road to start with. But it's, okay, we went the wrong way to get to. I mean, I ain't saying that from this team.
The ditch, if it's an existing ditch, I make that clear, we don't need engineering to do that. If it's an existing ditch with no different point of discharge into the clinch, we can clean it. That's maintenance, we're allowed to do that. It's when we put a new ditch, the ditch discharges to a different drainage area. That's where we get in trouble. So if it's an existing ditch, we can clean that out. That's not a
And
problem.
it runs right with the bottom of the railroad around, and it just turns off.
That's fine. We can do that.
The time we clean back,
Ditch we looked at, I was over there months ago.
Rod, you know where the drain pipe was when we went down to the railroad? Richlands knows, he went down there too. The drain pipe down there that runs under Mr. Hackworth's property,
Yes.
the big one, that's the ditch right there. We're gonna wanna cut a ditch in front of that pipe, down to that pipe, around Mr. Hackworth's field, over to the river to catch the backup that backs up through the pipe. You see, Richard, you see what I'm talking about, Richard? And that does not involve getting in the river. All it involves is cutting a ditch around the perimeter of Mr. Hackworth's property over to the river to catch the backup coming back through that pipe.
Well, I won't- how I feel about this, with what limited knowledge I have, just looking, and I don't have rich knowledge of roads and highways like that at all. I am absolutely for helping you know that, and everybody over here knows everything here is that there's no dragging the feet. It would seem that way for this council. Doug's trying his best to get you some help, and I'm fine with that. I'm thinking, I don't really, Doug, you need to repeat, I'm okay, if you want to. I'm okay, I'm not sure I understood the motion because it's pretty broad, and I kind of got lost, okay? That being said, if we could simplify this thing so that we can do some cleaning of ditches, and then get Thompson Whitten on board to help us, and or the county to have a long-term plan, not long time, but have something that has a permanent fix, not just a quick fix, no disrespect meant. I think it'd be better for you
If we
and
could
other
talk
people.
to,
My thinking.
excuse me, Rod,
I just want you to know how I feel.
I do, if we could talk to Mr. Hackworth again to reassure our idea, which he was at the meeting where we were, and he's the one suggested that we come in front of the pipe that runs under his field to cut a ditch around his property perimeter to catch the backup from the river. That's one fix right there. That's already one fix. And if we raise the road, whatever it needs to be, at least level with the other property across the road, whichever 6-8 inches, whatever it is, then that would pretty well fix it. That's only two things. That's only two things.
What about the railroad? When are we gonna do
They're coming. I can't tell you when. This was all in my report, but we got to it before I got to my report.
Okay.
But if we could talk to Mr. Hackworth about making sure that that's still the plan.
That's still the plan.
And he suggested, the property owner suggested that, go down and cut a drain around his property perimeter over to the river and catch the backup through the pipe. And it wouldn't back up this way. We'd still have it coming across the road, but we would eliminate one drain.
Okay, so we all agree it's an existing ditch. So with Mr. Hackworth's okay, we cut the ditch as soon as possible. We asked Thompson Litton to,
Or the
county one, to see what rate effect raising a 6-inch road would cause any damage or not. That's my motion.
Will you withdraw your previous motion now that you've changed it, please?
Okay, I withdraw my previous motion and add that motion, okay?
Okay, we have a second.
I'll say.
We have a motion and a second.
I just got one quick question. Is the addition to the ditch that Rick was talking about and Mr. McCracken?
Don't say addition,
Well,
please.
the diversion of the water, it's the same water.
Same water.
It's the same water, yes.
That's the only question.
It's the same water.
It's
the same water. There are ditch there, but trees, all these little trees are growing up.
I just want to make sure that we're dealing with the same water, not an additional issue. Okay, I'm good.
But can we dig it? Can we dig the other ditch?
We're not digging the ditch. We're cleaning out the ditch. The ditch is already there.
I just heard digging.
I swear, please just say existing ditch.
Please, that's how you got her, but you heard. I have a question. I prevail upon the court, just we had several motions, obviously, and you withdraw them and up on the floor. Is it possible you gather your ears, take your time, and reach motion? I need to clear the thing, but no disrespect to anybody. Thank you. Let's give her a minute.
The motion as of now is to go ahead and clean out the existing ditch as soon as possible, and then ask either Thompson and Litton or the county if there will be any damage if we add 6 inches to the road, and then continue from there.
Great job.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Curry,
Yes.
Mr. Hurst,
Yes.
Mr. Ratliff,
Yes.
Mrs. Strong. Yes. Mr. Wood.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you for your help and your consideration. Maybe we can grab that can now.
Okay, Lori, have you been off the podium? Fine. Yeah.
Lost track what was.
You have a meeting.
I'll make it easy on
I
we.
know, I have it all in my head now, it's got the drain and the water. Okay, I'm sorry. All right, I have several things. The first thing, the veterans programs will be on November the 5th at 6 p.m. We're going to have an outside ceremony since we can't have anything inside the gym with the PD. Jim Ray's going to be our guest speaker, and we're going to have a singing, the Jubilaires. We're going to be singing instead of the dinner. So we're going to have, what do you think about that?
You're like you're replacing dinner with a singer.
Well-
I mean, like, that's not, oh no, I'm hungry now. I guess that's what I was thinking about dinner when you said that.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you, Connie. What was the date?
November the
Yes. Okay.
Well, we couldn't figure out how to have a dinner
Right.
with everybody together, and then we thought, well, we could put it in a takeout place. You know, so we may come up with something between now and November the 5th, and talk to us, we can have singing and a dinner. But right now, we don't have all those details. Okay, the veterans banners, we have actually sold 33 so far, and I've had several people call. I'm hoping we'll get at least around 50 of the banners to put through town. We'll be hanging those on November the 2nd, and the deadline for the banners is October the 23rd. Okay, the Christmas parade, we plan on having it on December the 3rd at 6 p.m., and the theme's gonna be Candyland Christmas. The tree lighting ceremony. We decided, which I thought about this a lot, to have it on November the 27th, because that's when they actually light the tree up on the hill. I know Rick has mentioned that for a couple of years. We do the tree up on the hill and the main Christmas tree in town at the Greenway will be lit on the same day. So we're gonna have that on Friday at 7 p.m. Okay, we did have a ribbon cutting today at a retail store on 105 Suffolk Avenue, which was called the Bleacher Mama. So it's nice. Okay, the question I have for council, the revitalization planning grant, we did receive an extension to December the 31st. This would be the second phase. So I need to know if council wants to go forward with that plan. We have the planning grant, so we had to have several meetings with citizens, business owners, and Tim can speak to more on that.
The planning grant is a prelude to a block grant development through Department of Housing and Community Development for a block grant to do phase 2 of the downtown revitalization program. So what the purpose of the planning grant is to get interaction with the community, especially the affected area, of possible participation from the landowners and business owners. So there needs to be seen an element of people need to participate, because that's an element that will be required in order to qualify for this block grant. And we could be eligible to receive $700,000. That would be for streetscape type of improvements that we did previously, new street lamps, if that's what we need to do, facade improvement grants for business owners that would like to improve the front of their businesses, and those type of activities. We would have to match that with certain things. Oftentimes we would match that with in-kind labor for street improvements like sidewalks, creek lanes, the electrical lines to be buried, new water lines, new sewer lines, and so forth. So it's kind of a commitment going forward that, you know, if you don't take a planning grant, they really don't want you to do it unless you have the intention of applying for the $400,000 or the $700,000 grant. So that's the purpose of it.
So Connie, do you need a motion? What do you want?
Yeah, I'd like to have a motion if we want to go forward with it.
If you want to say it again, I have the motion. What do you want?
I need a motion for the town to go forward with the revitalization planning grant.
Is this for the west end of Richlands?
Yes, from the bridge west.
I'll make the motion as you stated.
I'll second the motion.
Motion and a second, any discussion? Roll call vote.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Curry?
Yes.
Mr. Hurst?
Yes.
Mr. Ratliff?
Yes.
Mrs. Strong?
Yes.
Mr. Wood?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, Larry Johnson, I think I did, see where he had asked about the Christmas dinner. He was going to provide the dinner, but I'm not for sure if we can have a dinner or not. Because I know Jerry doesn't want anything in the TV, so he wants to protect his people. He wants to know if they want to go forward with it or just not add it this year.
Very cautious that way.
Yeah.
I think we need to be very cautious, public safety and the safety of our police force and other county employees. Paramount.
It's the chief's place there, so if he's not forward, I don't think.
Yeah, he doesn't want any activities.
You want a motion to that effect?
Is there some alternative like we could do, or you were talking about takeout or, furnishing a dinner or something one evening, I don't know. I mean, could they pick that up?
Takeout.
Could you do that or no?
You just want to eat.
I know, we must be hungry.
I can't sing. But I mean, that could be a possibility, couldn't it? I guess and you
We can
mentioned.
talk to Larry because he agreed to pay for it, he was volunteer to.
I think Jeff is on to something. I think I have a suggestion, talk to Larry and see, since he's the donor of the money, and see how he feels about it, and then we can come back to the next council. That's perhaps a possibility. What do you think?
Well, it's also for the employees, a suggestion may be to ask Larry if he would be willing to buy like a gift certificate for the employees to eat at establishments somewhere in town.
Yeah, that would be good. I thought too, we could buy maybe lunch just during office hours. I could talk to Larry and see what he thinks.
Yeah.
But I think having a big dinner with everybody together is just going to, it's not pulling out anything in the TV right now.
Well, the chief says no.
We don't know where the
Larry.
colors will be that. That's what it becomes. So I can talk to Larry and just give a report back on that. And one last thing, I did give you a copy of an event permit application for the town of Richlands. I looked at other towns just to see what they was doing, for this type of thing. So I did type up things for you to look at. The only thing this is, like, if somebody is having an event in town, not as the town of Richlands, they could fill this permit out, bring it to us to make sure that we don't miss anything, like if they need assistance from the police department, or like previously, like if somebody wants to shut a road down, they'd have to get permission, but if they would fill this application out, we could get the proper signatures and ask permission from everybody involved at that time. So I just think it'd be a good way to keep up with everything, and then that way we don't miss anything that's going on in town, Like this one, be for parades, events, 5K, that type of thing. Just fill it out. If they need our help or assistance, we can, just give them permission for this
I think that's a
application.
great idea.
I think it'd be an easier way to keep up with it.
We've needed something like this for a long time.
Yeah. And other towns do this because I did do a little bit of research on it.
Are there any costs for the event, or is it just?
It's no cost, it's just like we could, like if somebody's asking permission, like today, the church could have just filled this out. And then we could ask Tim, the town manager, talk to Jerry, if we need to close the road, and everything be in writing. But then again, like when there are events, when they do have different things, the town's not liable for it.
But it would still come before the council.
Yes,
Okay.
I mean, with major events, I know all the events don't come, but you would at least have this application in if the council didn't approve it. But at least we'd have pre-approval from Jerry or whoever, that type of thing.
The response, Mr. Adams, it definitely needs to be a council decision.
Yes.
Code has some language in about doing that, what that means it transfers some of the liability of the event toward the town, that's what it amounts to. So we have to have council approval.
Yes, and also, Tim, we could attach the code to the back of this application, so these are the codes, these are the guidelines to the application. I
Mr.
just
Taylor, I
think
got
it'd be a
another
way to
question.
handle things.
So if somebody wants to have a car show on private property, does it still have to go?
Private's okay, the only thing you'd have to adhere to that, and it's a good thing to do that, so that you can get, interaction with like noise ordinances, things like that, or the fact that the police might be on more patrol there because of traffic issues. It's more for just being able for us to provide service for that. But we don't have to get involved with all of the private events. We just like to know it, just so we can.
Okay, I understand what you answered. I was just wondering because that would make me feel like we was telling people they
No.
couldn't do what they wanted
Oh,
to
no,
do.
just,
Absolutely.
a lot of them need our assistance.
Yeah.
Especially the police department, that time, like the last 5K run, we need to fill all this out so Jerry can go down there and say, yeah, we can do this, we can't do this, that type of thing. It's not like they can't have events. And we don't want to be involved in every event either, so we want to help wherever we can, so.
Sounds like
But if
council
you're okay
said, go
with
ahead.
that, I just need to make sure the council's okay with doing this Can I have an event permit?
It's great.
You need a motion. I'll make a motion that we use an event permit application that Connie has presented.
I'll second the motion.
Motion and a second, roll call vote.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Curry,
Yes.
Mr. Hurst,
Yes.
Mr. Ratliff,
Yes.
Mrs. Strong,
Yes.
Mr. Wood.
Yes.
Motion carried.
And one other thing, Tim, are you going to cover the Greenway?
No,
drawing?
do you have the copies?
I did give everybody a copy of the Greenway drawing, I mean, the stage.
I can speak to that when it
Yeah.
comes back. We actually, got permission to use some of the monies from the grant program to get a design, because the stage, once we, determined how big it needed to be based on, the needs of our community, it triggered some, we needed a professional engineer to seal the structural integrity of it. So that is a preliminary design for it. That was generated basically not from the T&M, the concept came from staff. They just put the drawings together. It's a little small. If you want a bigger set, you can just let us know, we'll get you a bigger set. But they haven't finished all the actual specs on it yet. Once we get this, we'll have a good set of specs that we can get quotes on to build this on behalf of the town through the contractors.
So I guess the next step, we have to get a quote on getting somebody to build it outside the town, correct?
Yes, we're doing an RFP to build it.
What do you mean outside the town?
I mean,
You can have a contractor in town?
that's not what I meant, our staff. Our town staff, our,
Okay, I got
work on the road sidewalks.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's it. Oh, one other thing. I had a lot on my agenda. We should know Friday if Thompson, Foundation will be giving us any, or Brandon is any money for the library. So once I receive that word, or Tim, then we can just email you and let you know. So we're hoping to get some grant money to try to help fix the library. That's it.
Thank you, Connie.
Cool.
Mayor Crawford, you never called my name to speak.
Okay,
You never called my name to speak on the public comment.
you weren't on the agenda?
I called town hall and
Yeah, we told you that, we had already sent the agendas out, and when he asked for unscheduled public comment, I think Amanda told you you would have to raise your hand and say, I would like to speak.
no, sir, she actually told me she would pass the
Okay,
information on.
okay, come on.
That's aggravating, just so, and I think what you guys did with the flooding, you took a long way around, but I think it was the most progress I've seen both sides of this council work together. It was hopeful, but I mean, even stuff like this is, aggravating to citizens to have to work this hard to get your guys' attention on stuff. And probably no shock what I'm about to talk about, but I've got a letter I want to read to you guys from the Tazewell County Emergency Services. It's actually written by Barry Brooks. He's the Director of Fire and EMS Operations for the entire county. And I'm going to read it word for word for you guys. I can provide a copy. To whom it may concern, I'm writing this letter to provide you with the information from the report of the findings of the recommendations of a fire and EMS study conducted in 2013 by the Virginia Department of Fire Programs. When a call is placed to 911, it goes directly to Tazewell County Emergency Communication Center. A trained EMD dispatcher takes the 911 call, processes the information, and dispatches it to the appropriate first responding agency. It is a virtually seamless process. This is not the case for county residents or visitors in or around the Richlands area. The committee suggested that the residents would be better served with a single dispatching agency to avoid delays. Any delay can be catastrophic to a patient experiencing respiratory or cardiac arrest. Trauma patients struggle against what is commonly referred to as the golden hour. This is the time from the accident until the patient arrives at a trauma center for emergency surgery. In 2012, the Tazewell County Board of Supervisors requested that the Virginia Department of Fire Programs conduct a study to evaluate the readiness and efficiency of several areas of fire and EMS systems within Tazewell County. The study focused on 5 central themes. The information below pertains to theme number 2, communications.
Theme 2, communications, item 2D, suggests that the practice of self-dispatch generates confusion and jeopardizes the overall service delivery. The county should continue its efforts to eliminate this practice. Theme 2, communication, item 3B. Additionally, the town of Richlands handles its own dispatch, but all calls are routed through the Tazewell County Communication Center initially. This has resulted in confusion among residents as well as delayed response to account for rerouting that call. It is recommended that the town of Richlands and Tazewell County consolidate into one dispatch center. This study was conducted by an independent, unbiased committee with the sole purpose of improving emergency services for Tazewell County. If I can be of any further assistance, please do not hesitate to call. Sincerely, Barry Brooks, Director of Fire and EMS Operations. Part of what I believe has taken so long for progress here is that we're playing a game of telephone. I've heard over the past maybe 2 or 3 weeks that people are saying, oh, Richlands can become its own 911 center. That was actually one of my very first questions when I started this with you guys back in like May of why can't we just become our own 911 center? And I found out that it's not legal in Virginia. We legally cannot do it. There's no hybrid system. There's no half and half. We cannot become a 911 center. Our population doesn't even allow for it. However, right now, the state of Virginia has passed a law that by 2023, every town has to be on an E911 system, which is a next gen 911. And right now, the state of Virginia started on the East Coast, and by the end of next year, they will have worked their way to our area, and they are offering us grants to update our services, update our system, update our radios, if we will consolidate with the Tazewell County 911 system. This conversation has never been able to take place with you guys. I've got the printed minutes from, I believe back in March, where we have a sitting council member who said in those minutes, I am not interested in what Sheriff Hyatt has to say. If you put them together, they better buckle up because someone's feelings are going to get hurt. To me, as a council, you guys owe it to us to do your due diligence, have the sheriff come in, have the 911 administrator come in, and let's have this conversation. And that way we're not playing telephone. That way you don't have me up here giving you information or anyone else talking about stuff that may or may not be possible. Let's get it straight from the source and straight with you guys.
Okay, Lord, your time's up.
Thank you very much.
Council member reports, Rod.
My report tonight is, that at our last planning commission meeting, we set a date for the flood task force to meet. The flood task force will meet on October the 22nd at 5 p.m. And, then the next meeting of the planning commission will be, tentatively on the 3rd of November, which I believe is election day. And I'm saying that, so we'll see it's scheduled, but if we need to change because it is on election day, it will be changed, in accordance with, the law due time. So those are the dates to keep in mind for the planning commission. And, I have had, several compliments, recently on the town of Richlands, general things about improvements, and, there's no reason to enumerate those, but it makes you feel good.
Richard.
I have spoken to Mr. Taylor earlier in reference to the fire and rescue contract with orders up, and we'll have some numbers later on to that as far as how we're dealing with the contract and obligations for it. Also, I think we need to set some guidelines or recommendations for Halloween. I'm going to suggest a formal motion that we recognize Halloween on Halloween, October 31st, with the hours of 5 p.m. to 8 p.m., with the understanding that if because of COVID, if you do not want to participate in it, it basically puts it back on the citizens of the town for the restrictions. You know, they can put a note on their door to say they're not because of COVID, or the parents cannot take their kids out because of COVID.
Why don't you, like, turn on the porch light or something?
Whatever, just put it back on the citizens.
Did you read the the code information we have about all
I did, and I checked with other jurisdictions as well, and, Tazewell, Cedar Bluff's actually waiting on what we did tonight before they, the Tazewell, basically put it back on their citizens with the guideline of the recommendation of 5 p.m. to 8 p.m.
So that's door to door,
If you want to participate.
5 to 8, if you want to participate. Correct. And I'll just point out, if I read it right, that's the most, exposure, and that's the third choice, right?
That's the reason it's back on the citizens if they want to participate.
Okay. You want to put that in the form of a motion?
Yes. We, recognize Halloween as, on October 31st, with the hours of 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. for door-to-door trick or treat, if the citizens want to participate.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. I would like to add, if you don't mind, it's not to the motion, but I'd like to add that if any of the citizens wants to set up a table in the driveway and have the food stash and children, for whomever to come and get, it may be a little less exposure. They want to participate, but not be folks coming to the door.
However they want to.
And if they don't want to participate, cut the porch light off, and the kids trick or treating, the parents need to know, the porch light ain't on, and there we go.
Yeah, okay.
Is there any way we can convey those? You know, I was reading some of those guidelines as well. Any way to convey that to our citizens or whatever? I mean, I was thinking about that, if somebody wanted to know how to participate in trick or treating, which is the right way to do it, as far as setting up, how would they know or get that information?
Town channel,
We have we can develop a notice and put it on Facebook, and we also put it on our website.
I just thought that might be informative for some people who may have some questions or concerns about it.
further discussion? We have a motion and a second, roll call vote.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Curry,
Yes.
Mr. Hurst,
Yes.
Mr. Rattler,
Yes.
Mrs. Strong,
Yes.
Mr. Wood.
Yes.
Motion carries.
That's all.
Mary Ann?
I passed out a handout from Jessica Reynolds Lawrence, the interim rec director. She could not be here tonight due to a family conflict, so just wanted to see if you had any questions on the report, and then to give you a few other updates.
The one question I have, Mary Ann, is it has a note at the bottom, the buying price that appears in this column is buying price per unit for each item, but there's nothing in there. I understand that it may not be possible for some of the, I don't know, weightlifting, things about for the slushies and anything that we buy and resell. It makes sense to have it in there.
Adrian, can you address that question?
The only thing I would know on the slushies is it may be that they haven't broken it down, like they'll buy a large container of the syrup and the ice and just pour it in. So, I don't know if they know like how much the machine produces and they could divide those supplies by that dollar amount and put it into the unit, but they would have to do some calculations to
There's no need to get real technical about it.
figure out.
If you look at the
I don't know how they figure the profit margin if they don't know.
It probably just says it's 100% profit because there's no unit cost, I would guess. I didn't see
If you look at the profit margin versus revenue, it'll show you the profits.
Right, but what he's saying is there's no unit cost for the slushy,
Yeah.
and it's probably because the slushy is basically a content of syrup and that you pour into a slushy machine. It's not like buying a bottle pop for 50 cents and selling it for $1.50. You're buying a jug of syrup for whatever. So you would probably need to do a little bit of calculation to come up with that.
But it looks like you're making 100% profit, which is good.
Yeah, that's what it's saying, actually.
That's good.
But that's impossible.
Now, if you look at your general ledger, you would see concessions, expense, and concessions revenue, which would kind of tell you what that is.
Used to be 70 cents a cut.
There can't be much.
It says yeah, if you sell your drinks for $6.35 and you brought in a profit margin of $3.16, so you're doubling, which is respectable.
Okay. Just a comment.
No, that's a good question. A few comments that Jessica wanted me to mention is that she did have a meeting with Appalachian Agency for Senior Citizens about the handicap playground. And the committee was formed, and there will be the first meeting with the committee tomorrow evening at 5 p.m. at the rec park. So I'm excited that the handicap playground is moving forward. And she's also, they're discussing forming a relationship with Appalachian Agency for Senior Citizens to have our senior citizens in the scheduled programs at the rec department. I bet you're happy about that, Ginger. You've been saying that for how many years?
Too many to count.
Right. Those really were the highlights. You know, the adopted child program is still going really well. Lots, there were 198 children in the adopted child program in the month of September that used the park. So again, I'd like to thank everyone. I think Mr. Wright, a lot of people in this room have sponsored children. The rec commission did meet in September. We had pretty good large attendance. We had some baseball, some softball representation there, and it was a productive meeting. We worked with both sides and came up with an agreement. And on next Monday, the 19th, at 7:30 will be the regularly scheduled meeting upstairs at the rec park. I would like to make a motion that on election day, November 3rd, like we've done in prior years, that the town offices would be closed and it would be an additional paid holiday.
That needs to be put in the form.
Yeah, I did. But I think I said I would like to make a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second, any discussion? Roll call vote.
Mr. Brown,
I'll abstain.
Mr. Curry,
Yes.
Mr. Hurst,
Yes.
Mr. Ratliff,
Yes.
Mrs. Strong,
Yes.
Mr. Wood.
Yes.
Motion carried.
That was an exception for the police force, right?
Yes.
Anything?
Okay, a few more quick things. Tim, you were planning to cover this in your report, but again, I said last month, just out of respect to Dr. Adair, where are we at on the fluoride?
We have got, like I said, the last piece of equipment in. We've had lots of time to get on the concrete, so we're trying to take advantage of the weather. Same people that does the concrete, trying to change that door out in that wall. But we had some complicated equipment to find. So I think we're ready to go. When the weather starts turning on rain, we'll be able to go. I don't really know, it wasn't my project, it was Kevin's, and I can't tell you how hard it will be to do that, and we're doing it with town staff to save money. So hopefully, once they get engaged, part of it has been done. The water plant person have done some of their part, and the line crew has relocated the lines. I know that's been done, but we can't get equipment in there without taking the wall out because of the size. So once the wall comes out, I'm sorry for the delays, but we're just trying to maximize time of weather.
Well, I'm sure when you've got good weather, usually
Trying to
for
get some
outdoor
time.
projects. And I don't know if any of the other council members have received calls. I have actually quite some time, but more recently, and so I said I would ask the question. The condition at the Twin Valley Cemetery is not good. It's really, in my opinion, deplorable. So the citizens have asked me to ask, is there anything that the town can do? For example, someone thought, Tim, that you could make a phone call to put some pressure on the owners of the cemetery.
I can do that, sir, on behalf of council especially, we write a letter too. If it's I'm not sure who owns it, if it's a local company, if it's somebody, you have information on it?
Well, I mean, it's just get in line. We had several complaints from property owners and people who have loved ones buried down at Clinch Valley. it's gotten pretty rough shape, and we've had several films down there. It's just, it's a little bit of a management problem, I think, from what we understand. We've given people the number of the parent company of those cemeteries, and it doesn't seem to be helping any. And, you know, like I said, we run into, I think, American Carpet Care was actually supposed to be doing, they were doing one of their cemeteries, but it was in Castlewood, and they were just sending two of their own people, employees, to do Punch Valley, where, you know, American Carpet Care coming, they practically got looking a lot better, but they still didn't send them down there to clean it up. So believe me, we are dealing with this every few weeks we get a phone call on it.
Just so you know, I actually talked to the owners of the cemetery, I believe in Pennsylvania, if I'm not mistaken. And, asked them to do something about it. They said they would, and they haven't. I think it would be good to follow up with a letter from the town.
Oh, I was down there the other day because somebody told me we had a hole in our street down there that was in the cemetery. It was a big hole in the middle of the road.
Oh, it's terrible. It's, the stump gravestones are broken. Looks like they're taking an end loader back out in there to dig with, and the big ruts.
Well, I understand, you know, like I said, normal stuff that happens in the cemetery, you know, you're not gonna avoid, you know, if it's raining and they have to dig grave, that's just what you do. But like I said, there's just so many little things down there. There's been a branch sitting next to the road that's been there pretty much all year.
Well, how long have those trash cans been full? As long as it's out.
Right, yeah.
So it's bad.
It's all,
We'll develop a letter, if you can give me contact information.
I'll have to get it again for sure, but,
If I'm not mistaken, there's a state code that requires upkeep on cemeteries.
Thank you.
I'm not certain, in particular, and it does sound somewhat familiar, so I can definitely give it to him.
I'm just attached that to the letter, so they'll keep it.
well, the thing is in the trust, I mean, they have an obligation under that trust to keep up the cemetery.
and believe me, it's not just this cemetery.
No.
Some of their other cemeteries, it's the same one. I've been to 2 or 3 of them. I'm just like, why can't they? I mean, I know it's rained a lot, you know, just a little bit of effort, you know.
And Mr. Mayor, if I may, the town might have some additional options with that, with some of the nuisance, related code provisions that we have. So we might be, but I'll give it to Tim and we'll start to look at that.
I think if we can push them along.
I think the strongest letter we can send, get their attention. We'll do that. I have 2 quick things. This last one, hate to bring up the cat problem again, but I was asked by a citizen, they have a problem with, as we do in many places in town, with cats. If they trap the cats, do you know, I don't think Chief is here, if they trap the cats, is there any way they can take the cats to safely let them out?
Not to let them out, no. I think part of the plan was to capture them and get them over and try to get a home for them. You know, I don't know exactly. At least that's what I think I remember doing. But that was the purpose of trying to give them more location so they could get them over.
And I thought I would start here, so I'll contact Angie Johnson with the Humane Society. Get this direction. Last thing on a very, very positive note, everybody loves positive success stories, right? But I finally made the time to visit Connie and Ginger's office, which is the CART office and Connie's office for community development and the Castle County Chamber office. It is exceptionally nice. The town crew deserves a lot of credit, a lot of applause. But I encourage you, if you haven't dropped by there, you really need to. It's really something to be proud of. And next, we'll get to work on getting the library as good beside of you. That's all I had. Thank you, Mayor.
So, I have 2 things. On the, will there be any more, is it PP money given out to help small businesses?
The IDA, the Taos County IDA, they're giving more money out to businesses. The application ended, well, actually, today at 12 o'clock. But I did email, called 110 businesses in our own Richlands area. I did as many as I could that I thought would be, could apply for the grant. So several of them did come by and I scanned that for them, but it didn't end today. I tried to let everybody know about it.
We had a few businesses that were unlucky enough to be on the line between Cedar Bluff and Richlands. And some of them had to go with Cedar Bluff. But if they had a business license in both towns, could they not have applied to both towns for help? Yeah, I mean, they did, but Cedar Bluff didn't get as much money, and those businesses didn't get near the money that some of the businesses in Richlands.
When they
If I
allocated
may, Doug, I really dug into this a lot. And B&B was the restaurant that I worked with. I don't know if that's who you talked to, but B&B actually got more by applying to Cedar Bluff than they did if they applied to business. There was a set amount of money given for restaurants. Cedar Bluff had 0 restaurants, Richlands had 7. Had Cedar Bluff, had B&B applied to Richlands, that total would have been divided by 8 instead of 7. So when they went to Cedar Bluff, they actually got more than would have in Richlands. Did I explain it correctly?
Yes, but the thing was, like, when they divided, when the council sent us the money, they divided the money out. So the businesses, that's above between Cedar Bluff and Richlands, they didn't realize that. I think AJ called B&B Restaurants, when they divided it out, they actually included those in Cedar Bluff. And that's how they divided the money up. If they had give it to Richlands, the same amount of money they give to John would have come to Richlands, not John. And then it would just been, divided out equally, so.
Well, some of the restaurants in, if I'm not mistaken, they got like $4,500 in Richlands.
None of them got
What
$4,500.
was the highest that some?
$3,500. All of them got $3,500 except for one, and it was for $2,000, but that's all they requested. That's all they needed, so.
Okay, I know that B&B didn't get,
They got $3,000.
yeah, they didn't get 35, so it's like they would have been better coming with us.
Well, if they had come, we'd have divided it by 8. So they would have got around $3,000 or less, so. So they really.
The reason I brought it up, you guys done a fantastic job, I'm sure. I just wanted, if there were any
Yes.
more, I didn't want them to get caught, or not B&B, but anyone to get caught in the middle. And then
Yeah, I
get
think
the-
there was a misunderstanding in the very beginning when they asked for the business license. They assumed before we had Cedar Bluff address, they went to Cedar Bluff and they actually paid in both. So, but the one for the IDA, Richlands, Cedar Bluff, everybody went to the county, not Richlands or Cedar Bluff. That way, wouldn't be
So
no
it'd be
error.
more, I mean,
Everybody goes to the same file. So it's the same group. It's like $250,000 more to be given to the businesses.
okay. You guys done a fantastic job, it's just always more
Oh, yeah, always.
snafus. Okay. And, as far as the parking lot in, on B&B, that's patrolled by us or Cedar Bluff? I mean, it's in Richlands, isn't it?
The actual building, most of the entire building, almost all of B&B is in the actual corporate limits of Cedar Bluff. The parking lot, almost all of it, not quite all of it, it's in Richlands. So we usually respond to calls that are dealing with the parking lot. And if it's got to do like inside the building, like, breaking in and things like that, that's Cedar Bluff's responsibility. So that's how it's done. Of course, we assist each other.
Well, just so it's clear up, the last incident they had, it was on the parking lot and our dispatcher sent Cedar Bluff instead of our officers.
Could just do a mistake, I'm sure.
I just want to make sure that, if something does happen up there, that, dispatches are right with the scene.
Oftentimes, if they don't have anybody on duty, Jerry will send someone anyway. But they're real careful what to do in a different jurisdiction because they can get slapped pretty hard by the courts. Really hard.
But if some parking lot, it shouldn't be in.
And not unless it's in the very back of the building, if it's in the front part of the
This,
parking lot.
this was on, in the parking lot, and dispatch sent the city work instead of police officer. Yeah, I just want to make sure something else happens, we know what's going on. The next thing is, I'm getting a lot of complaints on Pennsylvania, from Pennsylvania, like Second Street. They've got a drain pipe collapsing. There's all kinds of potholes and all. Could we take a look at that maybe?
Pennsylvania Avenue?
Yeah.
Third to Second?
It's Pennsylvania from Second Street. We get off Pennsylvania on Second Street. And they say it's pretty bad.
And you say drain pipe also?
Yeah, it's collapsing and there's potholes all over it. And since the asphalt's closing, we will get on that. The next thing is, I'm not, what street is Raymond Arnold on? It's, I think it's above, pardon? Okay. They've got a ditch line and it's above your property. And the water is overflowing that ditch line. I think we went and dug it some, but it's overflowing their property and going all down that street. And I was wondering, the town, if they could go up there and dig that a little deeper, and it goes around your property, it wouldn't hit your property, it goes on the other side, it wouldn't affect your property at all, but it would help them a lot if we dug that ditch a little deeper, so that the water would overflow and go down that street and hit all those, there's probably about 50 houses that it's flooding down through there. But I think you guys were up there a few months ago, and it needs to be a little bit deeper and dug around the hill, and I'm sure Raymond Arnold would be glad to show you that ditch. Could we take a look at that?
Well, I'll put it on the report.
Okay, that's all I've got.
Well, I had over on Iron Street, but that got solved before we got to this point. And Halloween was the last about that, but that's been solved. How about the street lights in Birmingham?
Really, the streetlights, that was another project Kevin had. He has numbers, he gave those to me. They were high, they were too high because they actually filmed way too close. It would be in in conflict with what we were already doing for everybody else. Right. So there is light standards for that, but you don't really need to follow them for certain areas. So he went back and got them to reevaluate that. It will cost us, I don't have it in front of me, but I'll give that to you, but it's money that comes out of general fund that we don't have appropriated, so we have to look at doing that. It would be an investment cost up front plus a monthly charge per light to the applicant because it's not their jurisdiction. And they had to design it all, that's why it's taking so long. So I'll have to revisit that.
Is there any way we can do that? Or is it just because it's out?
Well, no, we have the authority to light our own streets. We notice we do on 609. We go all the way out those LED lights, our hours, those nice big tall, lights. And they're funded, they were funded by us. They were put on us and we use our electricity. We can light the streets even in Africa territory as long as, that's all we do. We don't pick up customers. The problem over there is it's so much conflict with the lines already there. It's really hard and the roadways are so close. We tried to look at a plan to do that on our own. And it just costs way more for us to do that on our own than it would be to try to let them do it pay a monthly fee. We kind of didn't think they'd charge us a monthly build out fee. We thought since we'd be a long term that they would just start charging us like a wind light. But if it's got to be built out, they'll have to charge us.
What about the poles that's over there?
You can put a few on the intersections of the poles now. You can do those to get by.
I mean, I just want to do something because we've been asked that for a whole lot, a long time. But I understand the money too.
It was just the money problem, right? Yeah, I don't have those figures, but it was somewhere like $27,000 up there, I'm thinking, right? And then $70 a month per lot.
Can we check on?
Yeah, I'll update you on that.
Okay, and this was something I found walking the other day across from where my place is in Richlands. There's a manhole, and it's a piece of asphalt laying on top of it on Bill Henry's side of the street. on Main Street. It's a huge hole underneath there.
Who's that? Excuse me.
On this end of the bowling alley. Right, this, I mean, it's out in the streets. It's a huge hole. You can see down the ground.
It's on Fairfax, or is it on?
No, it's on there, on First
It's
Street.
on Front Street?
I meant to call, tell you, and I just forgot about it to just the incident.
Okay, check. Just let me check.
But it's, I think it's the only manhole down there because the manhole starts going the other way. I think it's the last manhole
In that line.
on that.
You're checking?
That's all I have.
Thank you. Couple things, we were excited last Friday night, we had a 5K race here in town, and through the cooperation of my wife, Charity, she did a great job organizing the event. I'd like to thank the Richlands Police Department and the Richlands Rescue Squad. They helped out immensely during the race. It started at 6 o'clock, and I knew there was some concerns Jerry had at the last meeting. But Jerry and I rode around a couple times, found us a good course, and we had 55 runners that night. I saw Marianne, she was running. And it was a great event. I thought it was good for downtown. A lot of traffic that night, so all the runners stayed safe, and that was primarily a result of marking the course with the town employees, and Chico and his crew helped with the pylons and had them all out, so everyone stayed safe. So I thought that was a great night for the town and a great event for our local establishment there. A couple things, staying with the Richlands Police Department, they've helped a little bit with the dumpster and the trash issue behind the food line. They've upped their surveillance, so I appreciate that. So dumpsters beware if you're dumping back there. They have some may have a surprise for you, but they have really been cooperative as far as getting all that monitored a little more closely. So I appreciate that. The other thing I was going to bring up too, Dr. Brian Looney has a optometrist office right there on Suffolk. I guess many of you know. He had reached out to me about the possibility, and I talked to George West a little bit about this too. I don't know if he mentioned anything, you, Tim, maybe not him, but when he mentioned it that week, he was asking, he's got 4 or 5, I guess it's clients that are wheelchair or stretcher. The only way they can get to the office via accessibility, stretcher or a wheelchair. I went down there and looked at it. The handicap spot is on the very end of the street. And it's a pretty inconvenient sort of get for somebody to park there and have to wheel that way. He was asking what the possibility, or maybe looking at the possibility of moving like a handicap entrance, maybe into the middle of the sidewalk in the middle of the street. How many parking spots that would, eliminate, or if we made the end one a regular parking spot, could you put it in the middle, maybe with a ramp?
You would probably, and we can do a design on that, but you'll probably lose at least 3 spots. And it's so premium there. I didn't know if that would be something that, I didn't get a chance to talk to Dr. Looney, but is there a possibility that we might if we could improve the alleyway, and they could bring in and do a parking lot on the backside, they could do the road, and then they could just drive up to the back one. I don't know if that building accommodates that, but that would be something that would be, and we could put a signage up, a handicap park in the rear or something. I don't know. Okay. But if you want to do that, and you've got other folks that you don't have businesses, you'll have to probably engage. I would advise that if you lose 3 spots, if you put it's real important. So council probably should, if you want to try that, we should probably get a design and then look at it with the council involved, because that's one of those that helps one that hurts another maybe. So, but I do understand his problem. We've been trying to figure out something for him. George is really wrapped his brain. If we could do something on the end of it, maybe easier, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, like I said, I thought the danger, especially when it's on that end, the wheelchairs getting really close to Front Street right there. I mean, it is dangerous,
I can tell you, when we painted that and put up a new sign, just so everybody see it, we had people complain about the sign. So you will get other merchants interacting with it. I just come to it.
When we saw I saw his customer that had a stretcher, and, you know, they have to block the street. You know, there's nowhere,
Yeah,
the park, and so they have to block the street. You know, you have to, you're not right there in the middle of the road too, so it is, I understand his frustration.
You know, the curb cuts, so you can't have such an angle on them, because people could walk up at one and curl back if you don't slope those way back. So it's a pretty big ordeal, but we'll, I'll get George to do a design element and look at it. If we can, if it's just two parking places, maybe it might be conducive. I can bring that back to the council, to you, whatever we like to look at.
Yeah, definitely interesting. Thank you for entertaining it. The other thing I had too, I know Connie, you mentioned about the veteran banners. What, if, I know when we put them up, I don't know, I'm sure you thought about this. Will people be able to buy them after they put them up? Because I know, like, usually when you put something up like that, everybody goes, well, I didn't know anything about it. I mean, you know how that goes. But I didn't know if maybe that's a possibility too, or if you'd even thought of that.
What do you mean by afterwards?
Well, if
Additional?
yes, because I know that happened in another community when they put the banners up. A lot of people saw them like, oh, I wish we could have gotten
No,
one.
we can add them, they just won't be up to the same length of time as the other
Right,
ones.
yeah. I thought about that when you were saying that. I said, I know what's going to happen as soon as you
Oh,
put
yes,
them.
it will. We won't turn anybody down. If somebody comes and,
We put them up, people are going to be like, oh, I didn't know you could do that.
oh, yeah.
Thank you for that. The other thing, I guess, and I didn't know if we were going to talk about it, I know, and I appreciate Adrian doing all the financial reports for council packet, but, you know, I was talking to a couple people too. Is there, I guess, are we going to do a work session, or is that where you're?
Yes, I can mention it since you brought it up. What our plans are, we have I have a lot of financial issues that we'd like to talk to you about, because we know during the budgetary process, we maybe try to get council involved as often as possible, as quick as we could. Quarterly, this will be the first quarter, and we've got a lot of information about last year, year-end. We've got a preliminary year-end report there that this quarter will provide for you. And she'll be going over that, and she'll give you an update on how we think the effects of COVID was on the end of last fiscal year and what it's done to us so far this budgetary cycle, being an update on that. Also, we'll address the EMS so we can get that to the county also. That's part of it, as well as some of the other financing issues I've got to go over in my report tonight. So you just couldn't do that tonight. You'd be tired of that time. So we're just dedicated to financials next month or next week. Okay.
Mayor, could I add one thing? Please, just quickly, Jeff's modest about all his wife Charity's hard work. I've ran, not a lot, but several 5Ks, and that one was extremely organized, and that's thanks to Charity, and he already gave credit to the town employees and police and fire rescue. And then also, just to mention Coal Town, I think that was their maybe idea in connection with Charity. And then the next day, the rain prevented the outdoor Women's Health Day sponsored by Clinch Valley Health at Coal Town that is rescheduled for October 24th, weather permitting. But Coal Town did allow 4 or 5 vendors to set up that Saturday inside the restaurant. And it's my understanding that approximately $5,000 has been raised that will stay local in Tazewell County to help women with breast cancer. A big shout out, I think, also to Coal Town Taps for another big event to help our community.
And Rusty and his crew, I don't know if I mentioned it, I did call him that week, and they went around, weed eated, trimmed, cleaned the whole course, made sure the shoulders were safe, and picked up the trash, and had it looking great. It really, I don't know if it was the most scenic room you could have, but it looked great when the final product came up with everything. So we appreciate him helping out.
Mayor, I have one more thing to add, if I may. I forgot to mention, Robert McLaughlin had sent a picture to me of East Second Street. Says 9 years and counting. I'll share that with you, Tim, so you can have people take a look at it, please.
I got that same picture.
Okay, it's my turn. First, some of this you guys have already covered, and maybe I'll just touch on it a bit, but, one of the things, we've had, protesters in locations in town. Down by Cold Town Taps one day, they were down by King Kong one day. I don't know who these people were, but they were, calling people names, profane names. Folks going in Cold Town Taps were accosted by verbal, abuse. Do we have an ordinance for them to?
Peaceful protest, of course, you might get some expertise from our police officer and coming on this, but, our biggest chore that we try to deal with police officers is make sure they don't, impede traffic, they don't, get into the streets to cause harm for that way. Verbal type of abuse is tough, I know, because of free speech and so forth. I'm not educated enough on the law enforcement side to probably that comment, attorney, but, I know most of our, issues are, if they become a nuisance in that particular part of it. If they are a public nuisance based on being too loud or encumbering people from going into the buildings, then they can act on that. But just peacefully standing by and, preaching the word or whatever we want to say there, that's a little tough. I'll turn that over to you.
What were they protesting?
I really don't know. It was kind of a moral thing supposedly. And I'll tell you, if I'm going into a restaurant, someone calls my wife a whore, it ain't gonna be a peaceful.
Mayor,
And that's what they did.
Mayor, we got takeout on Friday, and when I pulled up, I said, couldn't get out there and go get our food. He walked out and I saw a protest, they yelled at him.
Is he nice Friday?
Yeah, it's Friday. Or no, it was Friday before last, sorry. Friday before last, sorry, not, Friday night was right, it was Friday before last.
What is it, religious?
Yeah, they were holding up religious signs, a couple Bible scriptures. And then I saw them the next day out in Kingdom.
The religious because someone else.
And to pick on a young man.
Yeah, I didn't ask him what he yelled back, so. He was a little nervous, I said, just get in there and get her food.
Well, we need to look into it.
Okay, well, I'm sure Jerry's aware, but he's here, he can respond to it. Nuisance issues are,
If I'm not mistaken, I think we have the capability, even with a peaceful protest, to require permit.
yes.
So-
We did.
Yeah, I've actually had a couple of conversations with Captain Gilbert on this. He's called me a handful of times just with some specific questions about, interpretation of different pieces of Virginia law, not necessarily a Richlands ordinance. Obviously, the town council cannot do anything to stifle free speech or any of the First Amendment liberties that we have. However, we do have more discretion and freedom than what maybe you realize to shape where that occurs, how it occurs, and when it occurs, and also require a permitting process. That's something we need to look at with great care because, again, being a First Amendment consideration, you don't want to trifle upon that, in the event that we overstep our bounds. But certainly, I can get with Captain Gilbert and with Tim and begin to put together some proposals for potential permitting application processes and at least be able to provide the council with a memo about what is within our discretion to limit and how so.
So if I understand what you're saying, they can yell and call us any name they want to, as long as they do it from a specific place.
I am not 100% certain without, having a chance to look into it, but I believe the man Richard can, Councilman Brown, sorry, can lean on him a little bit on this. I believe that the Virginia Code section for public intoxication also has some additional language that encompasses profanity. Typically, my experience with that in terms of doing criminal defense is on the intoxication side of it, but I'm not certain. I believe there is.
Actually, they just removed that language to my first for that, but there's always recourse with with what you would call the victim as going in front of the magistrate and obtaining their own warrant for personal use because it would be a misdemeanor that didn't occur in officer's presence, so the officer could charge it, but there's no reason why if someone got called a name, but they couldn't go from a magistrate, they want to persecute.
And I'll check into the capability of the council, if council wanted to consider an ordinance, you know, in addition to Virginia law, that might make that, behavior unlawful.
Well, I think we absolutely ought to do something to control that. Because it was out of control. Well, they're yelling at your teenager, whatever.
And I know, when I spoke with Jerry, you know, we had some conversations about, there is some very serious offenses out there about inciting a riot. You know, and that line is obviously gray and fact specific, but, I can definitely follow back up with, Jerry.
I have a letter here from Lonnie Cordell. He lives in Richlands town limits. He's interested in purchasing or leasing a small piece of property owned by the town of Richlands. Property is located on Front Street, tax map number and all that's down where the Dairy Queen used to be, down there beside the Free Press. That corner in there. It's at 1249 Front Street. The property measures approximately 80 feet by 100 feet, has remained vacant for many years. My interest in the property is for prospective small business and requires only a small vacant lot to operate. To bring additional tax revenues to the town and promote economic enhancement activity at the east end of Front Street. He's asking town council to take the proper time and measures to review and discuss the consideration the sale or at minimum a long-term lease of the reference property. And thank you for the consideration. What he's got in mind is he's converting an Airstream camper into a food truck. And wants to sell a food truck up down there.
Where's it located?
We're down by the Free Press, where the Dairy Queen used to be. Maybe before your time, I don't know, but, now that's 19.
That's true, that has traders, all that.
So that's right across, you remember the filling station was the Dover Shelton had, and he was burned severely years ago. Right after that. And therefore,
The town, I thought you said it was
I'm mistaken.
Yeah. I think we need to do something. If he's going to put a business in our town, let's do it.
I think we do. So can we get in touch with him and ask his specifics?
Yes, yeah, and we'll have to do research on what we can do with leasing, how long and so forth, and on sale.
Do we have to make it available? I mean,
There's laws on,
I mean, you have to, you know.
being able
I'm gonna steal a little Tim's thunder now, so, my time.
Somebody said it was a poker house, so they should tell me where that was.
We've talked about a grant writer. Tim has actually interviewed at least one person. I got into this figure for me. We feel we should hire a grant writer part-time at $15 an hour. Plan on working 10,000 or 1,040 hours a year. That's half-time. And the salary would be $15,600 with the Social Security benefits and all that. It would be $18,000 per year. I would like to entertain a motion.
Could I say something?
Sure.
I talked to the town attorney and he's researching something about a grant writer. If it would be, you didn't see anything illegal about it, or have you?
Well, I didn't see anything that would permit it either. What Councilman Rattle was referring to, he had asked me whether it was permissible to seek a grant writer and base their compensation off of a portion of the obtained funds. I don't really know what my knee-jerk reaction is to that. The town obviously, and including myself, on somewhat of a contingency basis, which is kind of what that would be. However, the flip side of that is, we're procuring public funds, and I don't know if there are certain strings attached with how those funds are dispersed, if they can be used for that. So I have made put some feelers out with some folks on LGA and just started looking into this yesterday. And I've yet to be able to find anything on that particular.
In other words, instead of having another person on payroll, is if we acquired a grant writer and based her salary on, like, if she got a $500,000 grant, give her 2% of it. And if, as the town attorney said, we probably couldn't pay it out of that 500,000, but if you got a 500,000 grant, you could compensate her out of the budget or something. That way you wouldn't have a town another salary to pay. And with her, with someone like that having skin in the game, I'm sure she's going to come, or he, again, he or she, they would work a lot harder if they knew that they would get a certain percentage of that grant. I'm sure that we would get a lot more grants that way than having someone sit around and look for grants for a $15,000 salary. I mean, that was just my suggestion.
I mean, you're right about the majority of foundations that we deal with do not allow you to pay administrative costs, such as paying a grant writer out of the funds. We could take it out of the budget possibly.
I mean, if you got 500,000, why wouldn't the town pay 2% out of another?
And I don't know how you would arrange that.
I've talked
I think if we could, here's my opinion, and I can't make a motion, so I'm putting it out to you guys. If we could hire this person at $15 an hour, half-time, and really let her performance judge whether she stays on the payroll or not. I mean, we're not obligated to keep anyone. Or he, as the case may be. But in order to do it, we have to advertise the job. We can do that for a week. I think we
Since we got it done.
I think we need to move forward with it. The IDA is wanting a grant writer to work with them. This person to do that. We need a grant writer for several things. We've got some grants pass us up. Just simply because Connie and the folks here that are trying to do it don't have the time to put into it. One of the, I mean, I've taught a couple of grant writing classes, and one of the biggest things you have to do as a grant writer is you have to spend about a third of your time searching for the people that are offering grant, you know, not waiting for it to come up on the paper or somewhere in conversation. You have to dig for it. I would like to ask that somebody make a motion that we do this.
Before we do this, can I say one more thing? I think if we went the other route and offered compensation, you would get a much more pro or someone that could get a grant if they've got skin in the game. Most people, $15 an hour, what kind of, I mean, there's great people out there, I'm not saying that, but you're not going to get the caliber of person for $15 an hour that's going to find you many grants like you would if you had someone that was used to doing grants and they knew that they won't get a part of that grant, like a 2%. They would work much harder and you get a much more caliber person that could find those grants, then you can pay someone $15 an hour to look for one. That's my only concern.
I'll express my opinion on that. I don't think professional grant writers work on commission.
I've talked to several that will. How about, Doug, if you don't mind, how about, is anyone willing to put a motion forward?
Are we going to advertise this position as well?
Yes.
I'll put the motion.
I'll second.
Can we advertise for it?
What's that grant? Now let's discuss.
I'm just saying for $15 an hour, you're not going to get the type of person that can really find you the grants that you need, and you're going to fall short. And it'll be just another person sitting around, and they'll have other chores that you'll give them, and they really won't be doing the job that you want them to do. But that's my only concern.
Is there any possibility of an hourly rate with a percentage if they get the grant?
there's merit to what Mr. Rattle says, but there's problems in implementation because this grant writer really needs to be under scrutiny of the town's control. Because if they're just on their own, basically writing grants without any, you see what I'm saying? If they're an employee, they can be directed and they have control of what you can obligate them to. And I know you might get those controls in place. I'm not saying you can't, but it'd be more difficult to do. The way this would be structured would be the way that I think our council is you wanted it to be structured so it could be under a scrutiny, like say, I would put it in the Connie's department because that's what it is. And then they could have monthly updates on the performance on part of that. That is an employee, it is a part-time employee, and that way you have control of hours, performance, scope of work. If you're just, we have trouble with trying to do something from a governmental perspective, not you as a citizen, but from a governmental perspective. They're either a contractor or they're an employee. So if they're a contractor, you're going to have some kind of contract in place, and that's where the difficulty is in controlling that. That's just my opinion. Yeah.
You can direct a grant writer and have controls on them. And if, what did you say the salary would be, 15,000 a year?
Well, the total was 18,000 for the year with benefits.
Okay.
Salary, yeah, it would be.
Okay, if you pay that 18, let's double it. So you're gonna have 30-some thousand in that employee with benefits, insurance.
Oh, this includes that, 18,000.
I mean, I still feel, we can get a much better product and grants, and we, with the right supervision, we can direct that grant writer and get many more grants and the grants that we need by having it outsourced than just bringing another person into an office and sitting them down, and it will turn out just like everything else, just we're paying a salary and we'll not get very much product. That's my concern.
I personally think if we had a grant writer come on board and get $200,000 or $300,000 plus grant, we'd look at something. I mean, it wouldn't be a term of employment.
Well, we can set a bonus or,
What kind of person, my car wash guys make more than $15 an hour. And what kind of caliber of a person, the great, that can you hire for $15 that know how to write a grant and look for grants? You need an expert. You don't need someone off the street for $15 and expect them to come up with a $300,000 or $400,000 grant, $500,000 grant.
Any other discussion? We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Curry,
Yes.
Mr. Hurst,
Yes.
Mr. Ratliff,
No.
Mr. Strong, Mrs. Strong, yes, Mr. Wood.
yes.
Motion carried. Then you'll get started on that.
Yes, I will do that. Let's do this one.
Is anybody aware of a vacancy on the IDA board?
I have talked to several people, but to date, I have not been able to find someone to fill that seat.
Okay. This is recent seat we're talking about.
Yes.
We're searching for someone to fill a seat on the IDA. So, if we, I don't know if you want to suggest that if you have someone, would you like me to pass that to you, Paul, or if you want the next council meeting?
Yeah, so we can.
Next council. I'll try to do someone who's willing to serve and be qualified.
Or if anybody else knows anyone that would be willing to serve. Just shoot me a text with a phone number, form name, and phone number on contact. Okay. In your discussion, Mary Ann, I felt like you were saying that the rec department and the Richlands Athletic League got their heads together.
Yes, we did reach an agreement, although the written agreement that we have between the town and the Richlands Athletic League ends this month. So we will be beginning the discussion for a new agreement.
All right, is that the thing that, that Mark is, okay. So we're working on
Yes, so we'll meet and we may leave the agreement as is, or we could make changes to it.
it. All right.
Is there an open spot on the recognition?
Not at this point.
I had an email from Martha, if you got it requested, someone that will be.
Same email I'm talking about.
We don't have a vacancy, but at the end of the year, there'll be terms, people will be coming off.
So I think what he wants is for the athletic league to be represented on the rec board, which I think sounds like a good idea. So if we just get it in place, so one of those terms come off.
I agree.
Accommodate that. Right.
I think that's excellent.
The money, that we were going to request from Quincy Valley Community Action, to go to the Community Investment Partnership, did that get done? It did get done. How much?
5,000.
Okay, I had a couple other things, but I think you're going to have one maybe with talk. All right, attorney comment?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, there's, two ordinances that are on the agenda, one for consideration of council to vote on.
Wayne, it's good to have you back, by the way. Glad you feel good.
Thank you. I was a little concerned there for a moment when I was emailing. Yes, Mr. Mayor, there's two ordinances on the agenda tonight, one for consideration of council to vote on, one for a first reading. I can, do the second reading of the one that's on the agenda tonight for consideration if you'd like. Consideration of ordinance O 2020-10-1 rezoning certain properties from M1 to R2. Whereas town council now desires to rezone certain properties located in the town of Richlands to R2 from their current designation of M1. Whereas said certain properties areas are listed below: 2622 Chestnut Street, Richlands, Virginia 24641, parcel number 05A80505001. Whereas town council is endowed with such authority pursuant to certain enumerated powers in Virginia Code Section 15.2-2200 et sec and the Richlands Code of Ordinances, Chapter 154.205 et sec. Whereas the matter was referred to the Richlands Planning Commission on August 4th, 2020. Whereas said commission favorably reported to the town council during a regularly scheduled meeting on August 11th, 2020 in favor of the requested rezoning. Whereas a public hearing regarding the matter took place on September 8th, 2020, after first being duly advertised in the newspaper of general circulation in the town of Richlands on August 19th, 2020, and August 26th, 2020, in compliance with the Richlands Code of Ordinances, Chapter 154.205A. Now therefore be it ordained by the town council of the town of Richlands, after a duly advertised public hearing on the matter on September 8th, 2020, and after a favorable report of the Richlands Planning Commission delivered to the town council at a regularly scheduled meeting on August 11th, 2020, in support of the rezoning, that the rezoning of certain properties specifically listed herein are now rezoned from their current designation of M1 to R2. And Mr. Mayor, if you would entertain a motion to pass that ordinance.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to pass this ordinance.
I'll make the motion to pass the said ordinance.
Have a second.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Curry?
Yes.
Mr. Hurst?
Yes.
Mr. Ratliff?
Yes.
Mrs. Strong?
Yes.
Mr. Wood?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Mr. Mayor, if you would entertain an additional motion on that ordinance, the council so desires for that to become effective immediately as opposed to the 30-day waiting period.
I'll make that motion.
A motion
I'll second the motion.
and a second. Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Curry?
Yes.
Mr. Hurst?
Yes.
Mr. Ratliff?
Yes.
Mrs. Strong?
Yes.
Mr. Wood?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, Mr. Mayor, the second ordinance, I believe it will be appropriate to spare everyone. It is identical in nature to the previous motion, except for a different property. That property is 430 Virginia Avenue, Richlands, Virginia, 24641, parcel 105B040001-0003. And that ordinance pertains to rezoning that current property from its current designation of R2 to R2/B2. And again, it is identical in nature to the previous ordinance.
Do I have a motion?
That was just the first reading, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, we don't need a motion on it. Okay, sorry. All right. Anything else?
No, sir.
Dan?
Okay, if you would please, look at the check registers that have been provided. Packets. And if you have any questions on any, I'll be more happy to try to answer this.
I will say, I really like getting this in my packet where I had time to sit down and, go through it a little bit.
We've adjusted some of our policies to try to get this agenda package out quicker and get everything complete if we can.
I do have a few questions as a result of that.
Okay.
8831 Badger meter, $7,925.
Yes, we have budgeted over the last 5 years to implement these automatic meter reading water meters into our system. We have presently did that for all of the residential meters. Now we're working on the larger business meters, and that is what that is. That's the water meters.
That's the reason I asked, because I knew you had said we had it for all.
Residential we have, only business.
All right. 8850 Dale Marketing, 17,524.
Those, that was a grant that the police department was very lucky to get through the CARES Act, and that replaced 13 laptops for the police department's patrol division.
So we got the money in from the grant and paid it out.
Yes, yes, sir.
8873 Mark Heisen, $1,500.
Mark is our IT expert that we use for all of our Microsoft high-end things. He's a retainer junior. He also designs architects, our structures for all that we do on the really high end. He's a part-time individual, has been with us for many years, and that's his retainer monthly. You'll see that every month, basically.
8885 priority medical claims, 3502.
Those are collections, probably, I'm not sure, Ada, that's probably
That's the
refunds.
commission, that's the commission that we paid at priority medical claims for doing the billing for rescue. So they actually collect 7% based on, the collections that we receive on the EMS billing. So that's the billing cost.
That's their share.
That's $3,500. What ballpark did we get?
No, it's based on what we actually receive in payments. So they do the billing for the rescue, the ambulance service.
Yeah.
They don't get commission unless it's paid. So their commission is based on what we get paid out of those billings, and it's 7% of what they collect out of the month.
Okay, so this is the 7% of the money we got.
That's right.
Right. Okay. That's a pretty good chunk of change. Isn't it?
It may represent multiple months because of the way we collect it too. It's not just for that month. It's when we get the money, but it could represent the billing of prior months. Yeah.
Right, it's the collection.
The Southwest Virginia Community Just 8897 PD J Brooks membership.
That's probably a new shipment to the academy. That's a cost to the academy that we have to belong to. So that's a new officer that we have in that grant program. So that's part of the obligations that we have to pay to the academy investment.
Okay, and 8899 Stephen Gooch, attorney, for attorney fees.
That's Mr. Wayne over there. That's his.
That's right, we met him. Sorry, dumb question. That's all I have.
You might have anything else? I'll do that. Okay.
8783 to the treasurer, Virginia, says it's a grant fee fund. That's 5,912.
I'm gonna have to let, Ingrid probably answer that.
That was on the, grant that we applied for the SRO officer. Like we applied for the 47,254 based on a max number of hours. If they don't actually, have to work those number of hours, we don't pay the officer, so.
So that's paid.
Yeah. So if we requested more than what we paid, we get that back.
All right.
So it's not, we're not out any money, we're just,
That is all right. Entertain a motion to pay the bill.
I make the motion that we pay the bills.
I'll second the motion.
Motion and second. Roll call vote.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Curry?
Yes.
Mr. Hurst?
Yes.
Mr. Ratliff?
Yes.
Mrs. Strong?
Yes.
Mr. Wood?
Yes.
Motion carries. Okay.
Item B in my report, consider adopting the resolution. This is a resolution R 2020-10-01. This resolution is required for projects that are administered by the VDOT, Virginia Department of Transportation on behalf of the town of Richlands. This is the Allegheny Bridge that's currently being under the construction process. Part of that money, when they get through the program, sometimes you can see in the particular resolution is the funds have to be committed to planning, engineering, right-of-way costs, construction as applicable of the project. Sometimes projects, we have to do a percentage of costs. Usually it's no more than 2%. Oftentimes, though, on the smart scale, it is nothing. Just depends on the type of program. But we are obligated to do that, and it also provides the means for the program to be satisfied with VDOT. So it is a required commitment from the governing body. So do we need to read that? What they want?
Probably winner.
Okay. I can read that. Resolution R 2020-10-01, affirming commitment to the fund, the locality share projects under agreement with the Virginia Department of Transportation and provides signatory authority. Whereas the town of Richlands is a recipient of the Virginia Department of Transportation funds and various grant programs for transportation-related projects, and whereas the Virginia Department of Transportation requires each locality by resolution to provide assistance in its commitment to funding its local share. And therefore, it be hereby resolved by the town council of the town of Richlands hereby commits to fund its local share of preliminary engineering, right-of-way, and construction as applicable of the project or the projects under agreement with the Virginia Department of Transportation according to the project financial documents. And be it further resolved that the town manager and or his designees is authorized to execute all agreements and or addendums for any approved projects with the Virginia Department of Transportation. So we need a motion. Yes, what we do.
Have a motion.
I'll make the motion to adopt resolution R 2020-10-01.
Second.
I'll second the motion.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I do have a question that's not regarding the motion itself. Is the bridge going to be shut completely down?
Yes, you remember we talked about being able to shut it down will expedite the construction, and we have to keep the route through the street department open for emergency response. Because the train would get on the track, we couldn't get to the folks, so that has to be part of the discussion we had prior to them to do this, and then they finalize construction. I don't remember, but I think it's 6 months or so. It's not a long project, but that bridge will have to be out.
I was thinking more in the line of flooding, you're taking one, and it'll be out of there as far as.
If it floods, you'll have to go up through tracks. That's the only way to do that.
But they're not using the tracks now.
Not hardly at all. That's true.
Because I did learn that they had declared it unsafe, so they don't use it anymore. So most likely we're not gonna have a train.
But we have a plan in place to keep that address?
Yes, yeah. When they have to actually close that, we will have, and we talked a little bit about maybe trying to, we haven't finalized it with engineers input. We thought maybe, it'd be nice to have a mechanized gate that the rescue squad could actually hit and they would open up if something gets through. If we could get some cares from them, trying to do that would be great. So we talked about that.
That's all that.
But we have more property over there, so we can move this stuff around. So we should, we like to do some jump there too.
Amen.
Roll call motion.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Curry?
Yes.
Mr. Hurst?
Yes.
Mr. Ratliff?
Yes.
Mrs. Strong?
Yes.
Mr. Wood?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, thank you. Next item is a letter that you had a chance to look at from the Virginia Resources Authority. The funding for the wastewater treatment plant upgrade was a program administered by the Department of Environmental Quality. However, the agency that will handle all the funding arrangements and covenants for the bonds will be the bond agent, basically, is Virginia Resources Authority, VRA. We've talked to council about this before, and this is one of the reasons we need to have this meeting next week, is to go into a lot of detail. But basically, they gave us a great rate. I mean, $2.7 million worth of basically free grant money, and the balance of the about close to $10 million or so in change for the rest of the funds at 0.5% for 25 years. You're not going to get a commercial bank, and you're not going to issue a bond, a municipal bond, and get that type of arrangements. So in order to get that money, there are stipulations, and this particular document outlines what has to be done. The meat of the matter is basically they're going to have a qualified independent consultant to examine the rate covenant that we have in place. And it must meet and satisfy 2 complete fiscal years following the estimated project completion. So you'll have to have that in place. And we're currently talking to VML, MACO, which is a Virginia Municipal League, and the Virginia Association of Counties. They have a business, the business side of them, they have some experts and financial advisors that can do that. We're talking to them because that being part of the governmental type of function of those, they can provide, we hope, a cheaper rate. But we will have to, we'll try to get a quote from them. We may have it by next week, we may not, but that'll be a requirement you'll have to have. So once the cost of service study is in place, and I'll just brief you on this real quick, because I'd like for you to study the letter. Once that rate covenant is in place, then this qualifying independent consultant will basically make sure that matches what all the obligations you would have within the water and sewer funds. They also have did what they call a double barrel bond requirement. That means water revenues, sewer revenues, and general obligation revenues. So if something happens to your water and sewer funds that they don't deliver the amount of money on an annual basis, you will be required to make adjustments to the general fund activity on those taxes. The one that gives me a lot of heartburn is, and why we really need to talk about it, is they put into this a spring revenue pledge, and it's going to be a spring lien, they call it. They're trying to capture some of the electrical revenues. And we had a talk with them earlier, a few months ago, we had a talk about how we feel like that's unjust, this subordinate lien, and we didn't know what it's called at that time. They came up with that. But this would really hamper our means of buying power on the market. It's really going to cause us some difficulties, because that will be another issue that will lower our rating system on the power supply side of it. So we need to talk about strategies that would to lift that subordinate lien of revenues that would be required by the electric department. You can always just say that you have to actually not meet the covenant for 2 consecutive years for that to spring into place. But once it springs into place, it goes for the remaining life of the loan. So even the hint of that happening is going to hurt our rating on buying power. So we need to talk about that in length next week. So that's what we're faced with to deal with, to get that term of money with PRA. So if you have any questions on it, between now and hopefully whatever time we can meet next week, just call me or Adrian, we can talk to you about that. And we will talk a little bit more next, about both projects, water and wastewater. You did have a copy of the rehabilitation project update. You gave a copy of the minutes and the project schedule in your package, so you should have that. Moving on to waste to water, which was already a parallel project that we're working on, and you're aware of this because we had a meeting with the engineers a few weeks ago, or several months ago. I can't remember on the particular day, but we did we applied for money through the assistance, drinking water assistance, construction financial assistance fund. And that's through the Department of Health. And we got a response back on a letter that you would provide in the package on September 28th. That particular amount to borrow based on the PER was $3,889,000. So the offer is, for that particular loan, is $3,889,000 for a term of 20 years, which is based on the life of the project. Now, the reason in your PERs, if you remember, our financial analysis preliminarily was based on a 25-year loan, I believe, or maybe even a 30-year. I'll have to go back to look. I believe it's 25. The reason we can't get an extended life term on what we're borrowing for the water plant is because it's mechanical equipment, and that's what. It's the life of the mechanical equipment is not going to be 30 years, it'll be more like 20 years. So they're not going to give you a loan on a product that's going to wear out prior to the depreciate value or depreciate life of that one. So that's why we got 20 years. There's no grant money. No grant money in this one. It's a loan, and it's set to be indexed based on a municipal bond rate at the time of closing of 1% below the 20-year AA municipal bond rate. So if it's 2.5, then that would be 1.5, obviously. If you're eligible and we can get it done within the expedited closing program, then they'll knock off 14% of that loan. I asked again today, and I talked to Rick Chip about it, and he can further elaborate on this, why we just couldn't qualify for grants. And part of the problem is our rates are so low. Our rates are so low, he's told you that before, that we don't qualify for grant money with water. It's a lot of time. So we'll need to talk about that in detail also. I just want to bring to your attention so you can be looking at the letter and have any type of questions that we can talk in depth about that together with that. As part of the process with this water treatment plant final design, and you notice it says disinfection, distribution system disinfection byproduct evaluations was part of that. That's got to do with our tanks, and we can get into the specifics of that later, but we're going to have our tanks cleaned and probably install some apparatus that will help get rid of some of these byproducts that chlorine has, and some byproducts of disinfection that we have in our process. So it's a design that helps probably pushing pretty easy to get done. We did have procurement for the final design and the rest of the basic engineering costs. We had a procurement and had bids offered, and we only received one bid. That bid was Thompson Litton, who solicited throughout the areas, and we put it on everything we think of. We also have to do extra bid list solicitations from MBE, Women's Business Enterprises, and Minority Business Enterprises. We're required to do that. We sent the bid package to lots of engineering companies throughout the 3 states, mostly. Actually 4 counties, West Virginia, but that particular project only had one bidder. So that was Thompson Litton. I'm not asking you to award that contract, but we do have to make a decision. If you want to take advantage of this particular water assistance, you have until the end of the month, basically, to do that. So that's why we have to have this meeting tomorrow, or excuse me, next week to talk about that. So, Mr. Flanagan has the contract in place. I just gave it to him tonight. We've got the contract in place. I have started negotiating with them, and we were able to knock off $20,000 at least so far. So we'll talk to Mr. Chitwood, and he can be in attendance if we can get this meeting set next week and try to talk about these matters if we could. And at that time, we will take up the matter of hopefully award the contract to the lowest the bidder, the most qualified, and we'll make a determination on that. So that would be the purpose of also the recess meeting next week to do that also. And that'll give you a chance to talk to Rick Chitwood and get about any questions you might have about the financing. He's a pretty good expert because he's been able to successfully get these type of programs implemented for various authorities and municipalities throughout Southwest Virginia very successfully. So it'll keep us moving on and trying to get everything in place and try to stay on schedule as much as possible. I will tell you that we have our challenges daily with the wastewater treatment plant. We currently have a sludge pump down that's got everything stopped on being over sludge, and we're working on it as we speak. And we lost a pump this weekend at Revitalization lift station, and that's a 75 horsepower submersible pump. We got pulled out, we got to get rewired. So we're losing stuff almost regularly down there. So lost 2 aerators. It cost one of them, the replacement cost just for that aerator, it's almost $7,000. So we'd like to have some of this free money to spend, so we don't have to keep spending around. So we need to keep it moving as quick as possible. So I know I was talking really fast, but I just wanted to make sure we will revisit all of this next week. So on those matters, can we talk about a date right now, Mayor, since that's important to us? Or should we wait till the meeting?
Well, we can talk about it right now. We're talking about maybe Rick Chitwood can be here Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. I thought maybe we shouldn't have it on Wednesday night because folks have church on Wednesday night. And after I went home and checked, I'm actually tied up on Tuesday night. So the 12th is the only night that I can do it. But that's no reason not to have it if it blocks everybody else. I've got a very good mayor over there that can handle it.
Thursday.
22nd.
I think, as far as I'm concerned, I can do that because we have a flood task force meeting that afternoon at 5. So if we can run concurrent 6 or 6:30 possibly.
Anybody?
6:30 would be better for me.
Thursday at 6:30, is that work for everyone?
Good. Okay, we'll do that one.
All right, thank you. Okay. Again, we talked about that, just mine and Judy there. Bridge inspections was one thing I'm every 3 years, we have to renew our contract with professional services for a qualified engineering firm that does bridge inspections. And I can't tell you how important, you see that all across America, how important it is to make sure that we have bridges that are well maintained and pass inspection for liability purposes for us. We get maintenance money through VDOT to do these inspections, and they have to be done every year. Some bridges are more, or every year inspections, the ones that are more poor shape, and the other ones that we have are done every 2 years. So we really, I'd like to read this because we've always used this firm, and we've always, in my tenure, we've used a sole source determination. And I really believe we need to stay with the same folks that have given us advice for as many years since we've had to do this. So I'd like to read the statement and we'll get it into the minutes and hope the council will agree with this. I hereby determine as procurement officer, based upon previous procurement experience and their familiarity with bridges within the town of Richlands, that Schwartz and Associates, Inc., consulting engineers, is the only source practically available for conducting bridge safety inspections for the town. And after negotiation with the firm, I recommend the council authorize me to execute an agreement with this firm for the service from 3 years, 2020 21, 22, 23, I'm not sure if those dates are right. 2021 and 22, and they're actually dated in December, so it kind of crosses the year. Based on our last year's contract, if we can get this approval tonight, I was able to get the actual funds for the last 3 years, up to 2019 was, for 3 years, was $33,720. We actually got a reduction to $30,250. That's over $3,000 reduction from these folks. We do have to provide a little bit of traffic control and vegetation trimming and washing the decks and so forth. And they will have to provide a big truck that actually goes on the snooper truck that follows it goes on the side. So I can get this behind us and then start the inspections in December. I would like to authorize me to sign a contract with Swanson Association based on this sole source determination.
I'll make a motion to authorize the town manager to sign a contract with Sports and Company.
I'll second the motion.
I have a motion and a second, any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Curry?
Yes.
Mr. Hurst?
Yes.
Mr. Ratliff?
Yes.
Mrs. Strong?
Yes.
Mr. Wood?
Yes.
Motion carried.
We have one more thing before closed session for me is the telecom. We talked a little bit about that when we were talking about signing a contract with Point Broadband for co-location. We also have, I know a lot of you have been upset. I've had a lot of citizens call the office, and the ladies have gotten a lot of complaints about spectrum and their level of service. And they've been promising us they would have digital soon. Well, we had a meeting with the governmental relations representative from Spectrum out of Greensboro last week. Unfortunately, I had to cancel. I actually canceled my meeting with them, but I asked Frank to sit in for me. Frank and Avery sit in. So instead of me trying to speak to what they told them, I'd like you to hear what the improvements are and when they're going to go into effect, because obviously this will provide everyone in the town of Richlands has the ability to get cable if they want it. And if they get cable, they don't have to get the TV, but they can get the broadband. The broadband now can be available at any place of business in town and in residency as soon as they make the switch to various speed levels that Frank will talk to you about. So if I could ask him to come up and relay what Spectrum has told everyone, so everybody can hear that's interested in doing that service.
Like Mr. Taylor said, I attended the meeting with the government rep from Spectrum. And when I left, I was probably more excited than you were. They're going completely digital for the town of Richlands will be November the 10th, will be the cutover date. With that digital package, what it is, you're going to be seeing the same content that they provide to Charlotte and Raleigh. So they're adding about 89 new standard channels, 197 HD channels, 67,000 on-demand titles. So TV is going to be a whole lot different than what we see. The reason they want to meet with us was so we can let our citizens know they should be getting letters from Spectrum. Any Spectrum customer should get a letter sometime today, sometime this week, telling them what the changeover is, what you're going to have to do to make that happen. Some of you, if you have a box, we'll have to get a new box. Some of you, I think you said 85% of the boxes in play right now are digital capable. Every television will have to have a box, or you can use the Spectrum app. If you have a Samsung TV, you can download the Spectrum app. If you don't, then you'll have to use other devices like a Roku or some other Xbox or something to get the Spectrum app to watch on a television without a box. But what they're going to offer, if you have basic TV without a box, they'll give you 2 boxes free for 2 years so you can equip your television. So it's going to be hundreds of more channels than what we already have. The biggest thing is the channel lineup changes. What we got in the middle today is this. This is the new channel line up, and you can see that plus that, and almost HD all over the place on it, so TV's gonna be a lot different than what we used to seeing. Biggest thing is their standard internet package is gonna be 100 meg down with 10 meg up. That's probably what you got now. But you'll also be able to purchase a 200 meg down with the 20 meg up, a 400 meg down with I think it was 20 meg up, and you can get gig to the home or to your business with 35 meg up. So a gig of speed is that's what all big cities, 5G and all those things have, is that kind of speed. So you'll be able to get that in your the biggest thing is for the citizens, when you get your letter, make sure that you open it, and if you have questions, call them. So when they switch over on November the 10th, if you haven't made arrangements to get a box or have your box upgraded, then you're not gonna be able to see anything until that happens. I know we get a lot of junk mail. Usually if I get something prospective, it goes in the trash and I never open it. So, but now if you get it, you really need to open it. There's things in there for you to call and ask questions. Like I said, I was more excited when I went to the meeting than he was. We have a lot of telecom in town. We have 3 providers, Spectrum, Point Broadband, and Segra, which used to be Lumos. We have Segra and we have Point Broadband for the town, 2 ISPs. So there's 3 out there for our businesses to consider. The residential, we're pretty much stuck with what Spectrum provides us unless we go Verizon DSL. So it's a big plus for the citizens of Richlands in communication. Anyone have any questions?
I'd like to add too that we were able to get one of the first ARC, Appalachian Regional Commission, telecom grants about 20 years ago. And we have a fiber backbone that's built through our business district that we have dark fiber available. So, and we are leasing some of that to Point Broadband, and leasing some of that to Sabre too also. And we actually own, believe it or not, we got a joint project. We actually own 12 fibers all the way from Richlands over to the Wardell lot. So we're using that for SCADA and for tying into our pump stations along the way. So there's lots of opportunity. I think that this is what we've done with for the business community. The problem is getting it into the businesses sometimes because of challenges of getting it across properties and getting on poles and getting it buried oftentimes. But we have the ability to serve the business community with gigabit now. And actually the residents have that now, which is pretty amazing. I will have it. I hope it works well. So I just thought that was pretty good news for everybody. Thank you, Frank. Unless the council has any questions for me, I don't have anything else to do in the closed session.
May I request 5-minute recess, please?
Sure. Yeah. 5-minute recess. Okay, at this time, I'll entertain a motion for members of council to convene an executive closed session as permitted by the Code of Virginia, sections 2.2-3711A8. Legal counsel regarding the interpretation of Virginia Code 154.070 and 154.110. Also, 2.2-3711A7, legal counsel to discuss potential zoning litigation, and 2.2-3711A1, personnel.
I'll make the motion to go into closed session per item 13, subsections A and B, as read by the minutes.
Mr. Mayor, if I could add to that briefly, just an issue we touched on earlier, to also discuss pursuant to Virginia Code 2.23711A7, some potential litigation regarding the graveyard that we previously discussed.
Okay.
I'll add that to the motion.
Okay. You have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Okay. Be sure to take your mask, everybody. Oh, that's it?
Do I need to do a roll call vote for this? Roll call vote.
Roll call vote, I'm sorry.
That's okay, Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Curry,
Yes.
Mr. Hurst.
Yes.
Mr. Ratliff.
Yes.
Mrs. Strong.
Yes.
Mr. Wood.
Yes.
Motion carried.
So, that's when y'all are talking. It's right there in the mall.
You already threw one, by the way. Okay.
Chrissy's out in her car. She'll be ready.
Said 6:30, right?
So 22nd, 6th.
For the 22nd.
Yes.
They said they just motioned for you, not them, so I didn't think I could come in. It's their fault, sorry.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to reconvene into open session and accept the certificate of executive session certifying that the matter discussed while in executive session were both legally exempted from open meeting requirement and identified in the motion by which the closed session was convened.
So moved.
Have a second?
I'll say.
Roll call vote?
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Curry,
Yes.
Mr. Hurst,
Yes.
Mr. Ratliff,
Yes.
Mrs. Strong,
Yes.
Mr. Wood.
Yes.
Motion carried. And now we'll entertain a motion to recess our meeting till 6:30 next Thursday. That's 22nd.
Wait just a minute, we gotta go back. All right, going too fast. She's gotta have a road count call. If you didn't make the motion to come back in, or we let one motion out
Try
there.
to give both of them.
Certified.
That was discussed too.
Okay,
I'm just trying to be,
I'll make a motion that we certify that nothing was discussed other than what we're supposed to talk about.
I'll say,
Second.
okay.
motion and second. Roll call vote.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Curry,
Yes.
Mr. Hurst,
Yes.
Mr. Ratliff,
Yes.
Mrs. Strong,
Yes.
Mr. Wood.
Yes.
Thank you. Now we'll look at a motion to recess until next Thursday evening at 6:30.
I'll make a motion to recess until next Thursday, the 22nd of October at 6:30.
I'll say.
Roll call vote.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Curry,
Yes.
Mr. Hurst,
Yes.
Mr. Ratliff,
Yes.
Mrs. Strong,
Yes.
Mr. Wood.
Yes.
God took your job.
Good.
Brad, hold.
It is time. Teachers are tired. Rod, I'm supposed to.
Say yes.